My wife thought she was the smart one, secretly extracting money from my father while planning her escape with another man. She never suspected her grape-picker husband owned the entire Santa Barbara wine empire she drove past every day. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments, and if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The morning sun hit the vineyard like honey poured over green glass, and I stood there between the rows of Pinot Noir, breathing in that sweet, sour smell of ripening grapes that had become my whole world, or at least the world I'd chosen to show everyone. "Blake, you coming in for breakfast, or are you going to make love to those vines all morning?" Brooke's voice carried from the house, teasing but with that new edge I'd been trying to ignore, like she was making fun of something she didn't quite respect anymore. I turned to see her standing on our back porch, still in her silk robe, the expensive one she'd bought last month, claiming she needed to look the part for her real estate clients. The morning light caught her blonde hair, and for a second, she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. Beautiful, ambitious, full of dreams we were supposed to chase together. "Be right there," I called back, wiping the dirt from my hands on my jeans. The same worn jeans I'd been wearing for years, the ones she'd started calling my farmer costume when she thought I wasn't listening. As I walked toward the house, I caught a glimpse of myself in the greenhouse window sun-weathered face, work shirt with the sleeves rolled up, looking every bit the simple vineyard worker I pretended to be. Nobody looking at me would guess I owned every acre they could see, plus about 3,000 more stretching all the way to the Pacific. That was the point, wasn't it? That's what Dad had drilled into me after Grandpa died and left me everything. "Find someone who loves you for you, mijo," he'd said, using the Spanish endearment he saved for serious moments. "Not for what you have." So here I was, 5 years into my experiment, living in a modest ranch house on the edge of my own empire, watching my wife slowly fall out of love with the man she thought she'd married. "Morning, Dad!" Grace bounded into the kitchen, her dark hair flying behind her. 16 and full of life, she had her mother's beauty, but something else too, a kindness that came from somewhere deeper. "Soccer practice got moved to 4. Can you pick me up?" "Course I can, sweetheart." Olivia shuffled in next, 14 and already glued to her phone. "Mom, Jessica's mom is taking us to the mall after school. Can I have some money?" Brooke sighed dramatically, shooting me a look. "Ask your father." Maybe he found some extra cash in the grapevines. That stung more than it should have. I pulled out my wallet, deliberately worn, deliberately modest, and handed Olivia $40. "That enough?" "Thanks, Dad." She kissed my cheek, and I caught Brooke rolling her eyes. $40, she muttered, pouring herself coffee from our old Mr. Coffee machine, the one she'd been begging me to replace with some fancy Italian thing. When I was showing the Henderson property yesterday, the kitchen had a built-in espresso system. $12,000. Can you imagine? "Sounds excessive," I said, sitting down to the scrambled eggs she'd made. They were good. Brooke had always been a good cook, even if lately she'd been ordering takeout more often, claiming she was too tired from showing houses. "Excessive," she repeated, and there was that tone again. "Right. Everything nice is excessive to Blake Martinez, the humble grape picker." Grace and Olivia exchanged glances. They'd been doing that more lately, these silent conversations when their parents' words carried too much weight. "How was the Morrison showing yesterday?" I asked, trying to change the subject. "You were out pretty late." "Oh, you know how it is," Brooke said, not meeting my eyes. "These tech money buyers, they want to see everything. We ended up having drinks at the country club after, networking." Networking. That word had become her shield, her explanation for everything. The new clothes that seemed beyond our budget, the late nights, the way she'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. "Connor was there," she added casually, but I caught the slight color in her cheeks. "You remember Connor Johnson, the art dealer? He's thinking of buying in the area." Connor Johnson, tall, sophisticated, with that easy smile and expensive suits. I'd met him once at one of Brooke's open houses, watched him make her laugh in a way I hadn't in months. The memory sat in my stomach like spoiled wine. "That's nice," I said, keeping my voice neutral. After the girls left for school, I headed back to the vineyard. The real work of running Santa Barbara vineyards happened in an office hidden behind the processing facility, a place my employees thought belonged to the owner who lived in Japan. I'd built this lie carefully, brick by brick, until even my vineyard manager, Tony, believed I was just another worker who'd been here longer than most. But first, I actually did work the vines. It kept me grounded, kept my hands honest, even if my life wasn't entirely. The September sun was warming up, and I lost myself in checking the bricks levels, testing the grapes' sugar content. We were maybe 2 weeks from harvest, that magical time when the whole valley would smell like wine being born. "Blake!" Tony jogged over, his face creased with concern. "We got a problem with the Eastern Bloc. Looks like some kind of fungus." I followed him, and we spent the next hour assessing the damage. It was manageable, but it would mean bringing in a specialist, authorizing treatments. Things I'd have to do secretly later, from my hidden office. "I'll talk to the owner about it," Tony said, which always felt surreal. He usually responds to my emails pretty quick. "I'm sure he will," I said, fighting the urge to smile. Around noon, I drove into town to grab lunch at Murphy's, this little sandwich shop that had been there since before the valley became wine country royalty. The owner, Patricia, knew everyone and everything. "Blake Martinez," she called out. "The usual? You know it." While she made my turkey club, Patricia chatted about local gossip. "Saw your wife at that new French place last week, La Bernardin? Fancy spot. She was with some tall fellow, client, I suppose?" My chest tightened. "Probably. She's always working these days." Patricia gave me a look that said she wanted to say more but wouldn't. Small towns were like that. Everyone knew everyone's business, but there were rules about how much you acknowledged. I ate my sandwich at a corner table, watching the lunch crowd filter in and out. Normal people living normal lives, or at least lives that looked normal from the outside. How many of them were hiding something? How many were like me, playing a role so long they'd forgotten where the performance ended and the truth began? My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Family dinner Sunday? Your mother wants to see the girls." I texted back, "We'll be there." Dad William Martinez, pillar of the community, respected businessman, keeper of his own secrets. He'd built his construction company from nothing, made his fortune the hard way. He was the only one who knew about my inheritance, the only one I trusted with the truth. Sometimes I wondered if that burden was too heavy for him, keeping my secret from Mom, from everyone. When I got back to the vineyard that afternoon, I stopped by my hidden office. The security system recognized my thumbprint, and I slipped inside to handle the real business. Contracts to review, shipping agreements with distributors across the country, financial reports showing the steady growth of my grandfather's empire that had become mine. My grandfather, Alejandro Martinez, had been a visionary. He'd bought this land when it was just cattle country, saw what it could become. When he died, everyone expected the estate to be divided up, sold off. Instead, he'd left it all to me, his only grandson, with clear instructions. Build something that lasts, but build it with someone who loves you for your hands, not your holdings. I looked at the financial statements. $2.7 billion. The number still didn't feel real. Meanwhile, Brooke was at home, probably looking at real estate listings, dreaming of the house she wished we could afford. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone rang. Julian Brown, an old friend who'd become a private investigator after leaving the police force. "Blake, buddy, how's the grape-picking life?" "Can't complain. What's up, Julian?" "Just wondering if you still want to grab that beer Friday. Haven't seen you in months." "Sounds good." I hung up, not knowing that in a few months Julian would become my lifeline to the truth. The afternoon stretched on, and I threw myself into physical work, checking irrigation lines, helping Tony's crew prepare for harvest, losing myself in the simple rhythm of labor. This was real, at least. The dirt under my nails, the ache in my back, the sun beating down, all of it was honest in a way my marriage had stopped being. Around 3:30, I drove to pick up Grace from soccer practice. She was waiting by the field, still in her cleats, talking animatedly with friends. When she saw me, she jogged over, bringing the smell of grass and teenage energy. Good practice? Coach says I might make varsity next year. She climbed in, glowing with pride. That's my girl. As we drove home, Grace was quieter than usual. Finally, she said, Dad, is everything okay with you and Mom? My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Why do you ask, sweetheart? I don't know. She just seems different lately. Like she's always somewhere else, even when she's home. Kids saw everything. We thought we were protecting them with our silences and fake smiles, but they knew. Your mom's just working hard, I said. Real estate is demanding. Grace nodded, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. Dad, you know you can talk to me, right? I'm not a little kid anymore. I reached over and squeezed her shoulder. I know, baby. And same goes for you. Always. When we got home, Brooke's car was in the driveway, but she was on the phone in her office, door closed. I could hear her laughing, that bright, tinkling laugh she used to use with me. Through the crack under the door, I heard her say, No, Connor, that's perfect. I'll see you then. I stood there for a moment, feeling like a stranger in my own home. Then I went to start dinner because that's what you do. You keep going through the motions, even when the performance is killing you. That night, as I lay in bed next to Brooke, she turned away from me as she had for months now. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the gold necklace I'd noticed earlier that week. Delicate, expensive, nothing like the simple jewelry I'd given her over the years. Where'd you get that necklace? I'd asked casually. Oh, this. She'd touched it self-consciously. Mrs. Morrison gave it to me. A thank you for selling her house so quickly. But Mrs. Morrison had called the house 2 days later, asking to speak to Brooke about the closing details. When I mentioned the necklace, thanking her for her generosity, there had been a confused pause. Necklace? I didn't give Brooke any jewelry, dear. I'd covered quickly, said I must have misunderstood, but the lie sat between us now like a third person in our bed. Outside, I could hear the wind moving through the grapevines, that rustling whisper that had been the soundtrack to my life. Soon it would be harvest time. The grapes would be picked, crushed, transformed into something else entirely. Funny how wine needed to be broken down completely before it could become what it was meant to be. Maybe marriages were the same way. Maybe this perfect life we'd built was always meant to shatter, to ferment into something else, something true, even if it was bitter. I thought about my grandfather's words, about building something that lasts. But what if what you built was built on sand? What if the very foundation was a lie, my lie about who I was, her lies about what she was doing? In the darkness, Brooke's phone lit up on her nightstand. She'd finally stopped guarding it obsessively, probably thinking I was asleep. The preview of a text was visible for just a moment. Can't wait until next time. CJ Connor Johnson. My stomach turned to stone. I lay there perfectly still as Brooke shifted in her sleep. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and pick grapes. I'd smile at breakfast. I'd pretend I hadn't seen anything. But something had shifted, like the seasons changing in the vineyard. The harvest was coming, whether we were ready or not. And after the harvest, there was always the crushing. Looking back now, I should have seen it all coming. The late nights, the new clothes, the way she'd started looking at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. But we see what we want to see, don't we? We build these stories about our lives, and we cling to them even when all the evidence points to a different truth. That night, with Connor's text glowing in my mind and Brooke sleeping peacefully beside me, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. First, I needed to know everything. The depth of the betrayal, the extent of the lies. Because here's the thing about owning a wine empire nobody knows about: you learn patience. You learn that the best wines take time. And sometimes the truth needs to age a little before it's ready to be uncorked. Little did I know that Brooke's betrayal would run deeper than just an affair. Little did I know that my father was keeping his own desperate secrets. Little did I know that the golden life we'd built was about to reveal itself as fool's gold, and that sometimes the only way forward is through the complete destruction of everything you thought you knew. But that night, I just lay there in the dark, listening to the wind in the vines, feeling my marriage turn to vinegar in my mouth. Chapter 2. By January 2013, I'd become an expert at pretending not to notice things, like how Brooke's emergency client meetings always happened on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, or how she'd started using a new perfume, something expensive and French that sure as hell didn't come from the Target in Santa Maria where we usually shopped, or how she'd developed this habit of tilting her phone screen away from me, fingers flying over texts she'd quickly close when I walked into the room. "Another late showing tonight?" I asked one morning, pouring coffee from our ancient Mr. Coffee that she'd been complaining about for 3 years. "The Petersons want to see that Ocean View property again." She didn't look up from her phone. "You know how buyers are. They need to see it at different times of day." "The Petersons." Right. I'd run into Jim Peterson at the hardware store last week. When I mentioned Brooke was showing them houses, he'd looked confused. "We bought our place 2 years ago," he'd said. "Love it. Why would we be looking?" I'd covered, said I must have misheard, but another crack had formed in the facade. "Dad, can you sign this permission slip?" Olivia thrust a paper at me. "Field trip to the mission next week." "Sure, sweetheart." I scrawled my signature, the simple one I used for Blake the Grape Picker, not the elaborate one on million-dollar contracts. Grace was picking at her cereal, that thoughtful look on her face that meant she was processing something. "Mom, why don't you ever come to my games anymore?" Brooke's fingers paused over her phone. "I've been to your games." "Not since November. You missed the one where I scored the winning goal." "Work's been crazy, honey. You understand." Grace nodded, but I saw the hurt flash across her face. She understood, all right. She understood that her mother had priorities, and she wasn't at the top of the list anymore. After the girls left for school, I headed out to the vineyard. Tony was already there, checking the dormant vines. Winter was quiet time in wine country, the vines sleeping, gathering strength for spring, but the business never slept. "That fungus treatment worked perfect," Tony said, showing me the recovered vines. "The owner approved the expensive option. Must really trust your judgment since you recommended it." I had to turn away to hide my smile. "He seems like a smart man." "Smart and rich. You know he owns 3 other vineyards? I heard he's worth billions." "Where'd you hear that?" "Patricia at Murphy's. She knows everything. Says he's some reclusive Japanese businessman. Never shows his face." My carefully crafted myth spreading through town like morning fog. Sometimes I wondered what would happen if everyone knew the truth that their humble grape picker was actually their billionaire boss. Would Brooke suddenly rediscover her love for me? The thought made me sick. Around 11, I drove to the hidden office to handle some international shipping contracts. The Napa Valleys thought they were California wine country, but Santa Barbara had been quietly building a reputation that commanded premium prices in Tokyo, London, and New York. My grandfather had seen it coming decades ago. While reviewing spreadsheets, my phone rang. It was William Dad. "Blake, you free for lunch? Need to talk to you about something." He sounded stressed, which wasn't like him. Dad was solid as oak, the kind of man who'd built his construction business through recessions and booms without breaking a sweat. We met at a little Mexican place in Solvang, away from the usual spots. Dad looked tired, older than his 65 years. "What's going on, Dad?" He pushed his enchiladas around his plate. "It's nothing. Just be careful with Brooke." "What do you mean?" He stopped, seemed to wrestle with something. "I've heard some things. Around town. About her and that art dealer. Connor Johnson." Dad's head snapped up. "You know? I know she's been spending time with him. Networking, she says. Mijo." Dad used that tone, the one from when I was a kid and he was about to tell me something that would hurt. "Patricia saw them at that French restaurant. They weren't talking about real estate." The food turned to cardboard in my mouth. "How do you know?" "Because Patricia's niece works there. She says they're regulars. Every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday and Thursday. The emergency meetings. The late showings." "Why are you telling me this?" Dad reached across the table, gripped my hand. His was calloused from decades of honest work. "Because you're my son. Because you deserve better. And because—" He stopped again, that struggle playing out on his face. "Because what?" "Nothing. Just, maybe it's time to stop hiding who you are. Maybe if Brooke knew about the money. No. The word came out harder than I intended. If she's cheating on me as a grape picker, what would she do as a billionaire's wife? At least now I know who she really is. Dad nodded slowly, but there was something else in his eyes. Fear? Guilt? I couldn't place it. That afternoon, I couldn't focus on work. I kept thinking about Brooke and Connor at that restaurant, heads bent together over candlelight while I sat at home helping our daughters with homework. I left early, told Tony I wasn't feeling well. Instead of going home, I drove to La Bernardin. It was the kind of place that required reservations weeks in advance, where wine started at $100 a bottle, the kind of place a grape picker could never afford. I parked across the street and waited. At 6:30, Brooke's white Lexus pulled up. She'd bought it used last year, claiming she needed something more professional for showing high-end properties. She got out wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, looking like $1 million, looking like the kind of woman who belonged in a place like this. 5 minutes later, Connor's Mercedes arrived. He was all smooth confidence, expensive suit, the kind of casual wealth that came from family money and good breeding, everything I pretended not to be. They met at the entrance. He kissed her cheek, but his hand lingered on her lower back as they went inside. That proprietary touch, the kind that said he knew her body, had claimed it. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching the glow of the restaurant windows, imagining them inside. What were they talking about? Did she complain about her simple husband, his lack of ambition? Did she tell him about the grape picker who was content with his small life while she dreamed of bigger things? They came out at 8:40. Connor walked her to her car, and this time the kiss wasn't on her cheek. Even from across the street, I could see the hunger in it, the way she melted into him. I followed her home, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. She drove carefully, probably a little wine drunk, certainly drunk on whatever Connor had promised her. I gave her a 5-minute head start before I pulled into our driveway. She was already in the shower when I came in. Her dress was thrown on the bed, and it smelled like that cologne Connor's cologne. "How are the Petersons?" I called through the bathroom door. "What?" The water shut off. "The showing. How'd it go?" "Oh, good. They're thinking about it." She came out in her robe, toweling her hair. There was a mark on her neck, just barely visible. A mark that hadn't been there this morning. "You hungry?" I asked. "I could make something." I grabbed something on the way home. She didn't meet my eyes. "I'm tired. Think I'll just go to bed." I watched her settle under the covers, turning away from me as always. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, and I could see the notification light blinking. Messages from CJ, probably, planning their next Tuesday or Thursday. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. My wine from my vineyard, though the bottle just said Santa Barbara Vineyards, with no mention of my name. I stood at the window, looking out at the dark rows of vines. Grace found me there an hour later. "Dad, you okay?" "Couldn't sleep. You?" "Bad dream." She came and stood beside me, my 16-year-old daughter who was getting too wise too fast. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "If someone you loved was lying to you, would you want to know?" My chest tightened. "Are you lying to me about something?" "No, not me. I mean, hypothetically." I set down my wine and really looked at her. "Yes, I'd want to know. The truth always comes out eventually. It's better to face it head-on." She nodded, seemed to wrestle with something. "Mom's different lately." "I know. Do you know why?" I could have lied. Could have protected her from the ugly truth a little longer. But she'd asked for honesty. "I have some ideas," I said carefully. "But sometimes adults go through changes. It doesn't mean she loves you and Olivia any less." "What about you? Does she love you less?" "Kids. They see right through you." "I don't know, sweetheart, maybe." Grace hugged me then, fierce and protective. "Well, that's her loss. You're the best dad in the world." "I love you too, baby." After she went back to bed, I sat in the dark kitchen thinking about the conversation I'd have to have with Brooke eventually. But not yet. I needed more than just suspicions and glimpses. I needed proof. The next few weeks passed in a strange limbo. I worked the vineyard during the day, handled the empire's business in secret, came home to a wife who was becoming more like a stranger every day. She barely tried to hide it anymore. The new clothes kept appearing designer labels she'd gotten on sale or been gifted by clients. She'd developed a whole new vocabulary, dropping names of wines and artists, discussing gallery openings and exclusive events she'd somehow been invited to. One night at dinner, she actually said, "Connor thinks the Impressionist movement was really about capturing light in its ephemeral state." "Who's Connor?" Olivia asked. "Just a client," Brooke said quickly. "He collects art." "Is he the tall guy who was at your open house last month?" Grace's tone was innocent, but her eyes were sharp. "The one you were laughing with by the pool?" Brooke's face flushed. "I laugh with all my clients. It's called being professional." "Professional," Grace repeated, and the word hung in the air like an accusation. Later that night, I heard Brooke on the phone in the bathroom, water running to muffle her voice. But I caught fragments. "No, he doesn't suspect. Tuesday works. Can't wait." I stood outside the door, my hand raised to knock, to confront her. But I lowered it. Not yet. The wine wasn't ready to be uncorked. The next morning, a Saturday, I took the girls to the farmer's market while Brooke slept in. We wandered through the stalls, buying strawberries and fresh bread, normal family things. "Dad," Olivia said, "why don't you and Mom kiss anymore?" "What do you mean?" "You used to kiss her goodbye every morning. Now you don't even touch." I didn't have an answer for that. How do you explain to a 14-year-old that sometimes love dies slowly, one lie at a time? "We're just going through a busy time," I said. "Jessica's parents got divorced," Olivia continued. "She said it started like this. Her dad working late, her mom always on her phone." "We're not getting divorced," I said automatically, though the words felt like dust in my mouth. That afternoon, while Brooke was at another showing, I did something I'd never done before. I went through her things. Not proudly, not easily, but with the desperate need of a man who needed to know the truth. In her closet, behind her shoes, I found a credit card statement for an account I didn't know existed. The charges painted a picture. Hotel rooms at the Ritz-Carlton, dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, charges at lingerie stores. But it was the last charge that stopped me cold. Johnson Gallery $500 consultation fee. She was paying him? Or was this some kind of code for something else? I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and went outside to work in the vineyard. Physical labor had always cleared my head, and I needed clarity now more than ever. Tony found me there, pruning vines with probably too much aggression. "Easy, Blake. Those vines didn't do anything to you." "Sorry. Just working through some stuff." Tony was quiet for a moment. He'd worked the vineyard for 15 years, had seen me through my grandfather's death, my wedding to Brooke, the birth of both girls. "You know," he said finally, "grapes are honest. They don't lie about what they are. They're either good or bad, sweet or sour. No pretense. Unlike people." "Unlike people," he agreed. "But here's the thing about bad grapes, sometimes they're necessary. The stressed vines, the ones that struggle, they produce the most complex wine." "So you're saying struggle is good?" "I'm saying sometimes things need to get worse before they can get better. Sometimes you need to let the bad fruit show itself so you know what to cut away." That night, Brooke came home late again, flushed and happy in a way she never was with me anymore. She hummed while she got ready for bed, some song I didn't recognize. "Good showing?" I asked. "The best. I think I made a huge sale." "That's great." She actually looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time in months. "Blake, are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "With this." She gestured vaguely around our bedroom, our modest home. "With everything. Don't you want more?" "I have everything I need." She sighed, and in that sigh was all her disappointment, all her frustration with the man she'd married who seemed content to pick grapes forever. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "You have everything you need. But what about what you want? What do you want, Brooke?" She was quiet for so long, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "Something more than this." It should have hurt, but it didn't. It was too honest to hurt. She wanted more than me, more than our life, more than the family we'd built. She wanted Connor's World Gallery openings and expensive wine, Italian sports cars and houses with ocean views. She wanted everything I could give her if she knew the truth. But she'd already chosen to betray the man she thought was poor. What would she become if she knew about the money? "I'm sorry I can't give you more," I said. "Yeah," she said, turning away. "Me too." That night, I made a decision. I couldn't live like this anymore, in this limbo between truth and lies. I needed to know everything, not just about Connor, but about how deep this went, how long it had been going on, what else she might be hiding. The next morning, I called Julian. "Hey, buddy, what's up? Remember when you said we should grab that beer? Yeah? How about today? And Julian? We need to talk about something, professionally." There was a pause. Julian had been a cop for 10 years before going private. He knew that tone. "I'll clear my afternoon," he said. "Murphy's at 2? Make it somewhere more private. The Fox and Canyon Wine Trail, there's a turnout by mile marker 12. That's pretty remote." "That's the point." I hung up and looked out at the vineyard. The vines were starting to bud, tiny green promises of the harvest to come. Change was coming whether I wanted it or not. That afternoon, I'd start the process of uncovering the truth. All of it, no matter how much it hurt. Because Tony was right, sometimes you need to let the bad fruit show itself so you know what to cut away. And I was ready to start cutting. Chapter 3. Julian's truck was already at the turnout when I arrived, dust from the canyon road still settling around his tires. He leaned against the hood, looking out over the valley spread below us like a patchwork quilt of vines and dreams. "Been a while since you called me for the professional stuff," he said as I approached. "Last time was what? That background check on your vineyard manager?" 5 years ago. I stood beside him, both of us avoiding eye contact the way men do when they're about to discuss something that matters. "I need your help, Julian." "Figured as much when you wanted to meet out here." He turned to face me. "It's Brooke, isn't it?" I shouldn't have been surprised. Julian had always been observant, even back in high school. It's what made him a good cop and an even better private investigator. "How'd you know?" "Brother, everyone knows. Well, everyone except you, apparently." He pulled out a small flask from his jacket, took a sip, offered it to me. Whiskey, sharp and honest. "Patricia at Murphy's has been biting her tongue for months. Tony mentioned you've been distracted, and I've seen Brooke around town with that art dealer. Connor Johnson. That's the one. Smooth talker, family money, the kind of guy who thinks the rules don't apply to him." Julian studied me. "How long have you known?" "Suspected for a few months. Saw them together at La Bernardin last week." "And you want me to confirm what you already know?" "I want everything. Where they go, what they do, how long it's been happening. I need documentation, Julian. Photos, receipts, whatever you can get." "You thinking divorce?" "I'm thinking I need the truth before I make any decisions." Julian nodded slowly. "This isn't going to be pretty, Blake. Once you open this door, you can't close it again." "It's already open. I'm just tired of pretending I don't see what's on the other side." We worked out the details, his rates, what he'd need from me, how we'd communicate. Then Julian asked the question I'd been dreading. "Does she know about the money?" Julian was one of 3 people who knew about my inheritance. I'd needed him to run background checks on some business associates, and you can't hide billions from a good investigator. "No, she still thinks I'm just a vineyard worker." He whistled low. "That's either the smartest or dumbest thing I've ever heard." "Maybe both." "You know she's going to lose her mind when she finds out, right? Cheating on a billionaire she thought was a field hand?" "That's assuming she finds out." "Brother, she's going to find out. This kind of thing always comes to light." He capped his flask, pocketed it. "I'll start tomorrow. Give me a week, maybe 2. I'll have everything you need." As I drove home, I felt simultaneously relieved and terrified. The wheels were in motion now. No going back. That evening was family dinner at my parents' house. Mom had made her famous carnitas, the whole house smelling like cumin and lime. Brooke showed up late, claiming traffic. though her hair was styled differently than it had been that morning. Sorry, she breezed in, kissing Mom on the cheek. Client emergency. On a Sunday? Mom raised an eyebrow. You know how it is, real estate never sleeps. Dad caught my eye across the table. That look again worried, guilty, something else I couldn't read. Grace was just telling us about making varsity soccer, Mom said, always the peacekeeper. We're so proud of you, mija. Thanks, Grandma. Grace beamed, then her face fell slightly. Mom missed the tryouts, though. I told you I had a showing, Brooke said, defensive. On a Saturday morning? Dad's voice was neutral, but I heard the edge. Yes, William, on a Saturday morning. Brooke's tone could have frozen wine. Some of us have to work for a living. The table went silent. Dad's face darkened, and for a moment I thought he was going to say something we'd all regret. Then Mom touched his hand, and he relaxed. Of course, he said quietly. We all do what we have to do. Something passed between Dad and Brooke then, a look I couldn't interpret, like they were having a conversation the rest of us couldn't hear. After dinner, while the women cleaned up Brooke, making a show of helping for once, Dad pulled me onto the back porch. How are you holding up? I hired Julian. Dad closed his eyes. So it's come to that. Did you expect something different? He was quiet for a long moment, looking out at Mom's garden. She grew roses, hundreds of them, each one perfect and thorny. Blake, there's something... He stopped, shook his head. No, never mind. Dad, what's going on? You've been acting strange for weeks. It's nothing. Just be careful. Brooke is. She's not who you think she is. I'm starting to figure that out. No, I mean... Again, he stopped himself. Just be careful. Before I could press him, Olivia came out. Dad, Mom says we need to go. She has an early meeting tomorrow. The drive home was silent except for the radio. Brooke stared out the window, the girls in the back on their phones. A family of strangers sharing a car. That night, as Brooke showered, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Without thinking, I looked. Tomorrow still good? Can't wait to see you. Wear the black dress. See. I set the phone back exactly as it was, my hand surprisingly steady. The next morning, after everyone left, I called in sick to the vineyard and drove to my hidden office. If Julian was investigating Brooke, I needed to protect my assets. I spent hours with my lawyer on a video call, setting up additional safeguards, making sure that no matter what happened, the vineyard and the fortune would be protected. You sure about this, Blake? My lawyer asked. These are some pretty ironclad provisions. I'm sure. And your wife has no idea about any of this? The inheritance, the companies, nothing? Nothing. That's going to be interesting in court if it comes to that. Let me worry about that. 3 days later, Julian called. We need to meet. Same place. The drive out to the canyon felt longer this time. Julian was already there, a manila folder on his hood. It's worse than you thought, he said without preamble. He opened the folder. Photos spilled out Brooke and Connor at restaurants, entering hotels, kissing in parking lots. The dates went back 3 months. Started in January, near as I can tell, Julian said. They met at some gallery opening. She was there with clients. He owns the gallery. I know who he is. No, I don't think you do. Julian pulled out another set of papers. Connor Johnson isn't just some art dealer. He's got a history, 2 divorces, both ugly, a harassment complaint from a former employee that got settled quietly. And get this, he's broke. What? Family money dried up 2 years ago. Bad investments, expensive habits, the gallery's hemorrhaging money. He's been selling forgeries to keep afloat. And Brooke? She's been helping him. She's been bringing him clients, wealthy ones from her real estate connections. He sells them overpriced art, probably fake, and she gets a cut. My stomach turned. You have proof? Check transactions, emails she sent from her work account. She's not even being careful about it. I flipped through the evidence, each page another nail in the coffin of my marriage. Then I found the hotel receipts. The Ritz-Carlton? Every Tuesday and Thursday for the last 2 months. Room 412. They don't even vary it. Tomorrow's Thursday, Julian nodded. Want me there? No. This one I need to see for myself. Blake. Julian's voice was gentle. You don't need to torture yourself. Yes, I do. I need to see it, really see it, before I can move forward. The next day, I told Tony I had a doctor's appointment in the afternoon. He waved me off, concerned about the weight I'd been losing, the shadows under my eyes. I drove to Santa Barbara, to the Ritz-Carlton, where Brooke thought she was living her secret life. I didn't have to wait long. At 2 p.m., her white Lexus pulled into the valet area. She emerged wearing the black dress Connor had requested, looking like everything I could never give her as a grape picker. 15 minutes later, Connor arrived. They met in the lobby, his hand immediately going to her waist, proprietary and familiar. They walked to the elevator like they owned the place. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. The elevator showed they'd gone to the 4th floor. I took the stairs, my heart pounding with each step. Room 412 was at the end of the hall. I stood outside, close enough to hear Brooke's laugh, that bright sound that used to be mine. Then other sounds, ones that confirmed everything I needed to know. I walked back to the stairwell and sat on the top step, head in my hands. It was real now, undeniably real. Not just suspicions or fears, but truth as solid as the concrete beneath me. An hour later, I was back in my truck when they emerged. They walked to their separate cars, but not before Connor pulled her close, kissed her deeply, whispered something that made her laugh again. I followed Brooke home, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. She drove carefully, checking her mirrors, playing the role of the cautious driver. When she pulled into our driveway, I waited 10 minutes before following. She was in the kitchen when I came in, making a salad. "How was your day?" she asked, not looking up. "Fine. Yours?" "Busy. That Ocean View property finally got an offer." "That's great." We ate dinner like a normal family. Brooke told stories about difficult clients, the girls talked about school. I nodded and smiled and felt like I was watching it all from outside my body. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and made my decision. I wouldn't confront her. Not yet. First, I needed to know if this was the extent of it. Something in Dad's warnings, in the fear I'd seen in his eyes, told me there was more. The next morning, I called Julian. "I need you to dig deeper." "Deeper how?" "Check everything. Financial records, any connections between her and Connor beyond the affair. And Julian? Look into whether she's been in contact with my father." "Your father? Why would... Just do it, please." There was a pause. "You think there's more to this?" "I know there is. I can feel it." "All right. Give me another week." That week passed like a month. I went through the motions working the vineyard, running the empire in secret, playing the oblivious husband. But I was watching now, really watching. I noticed how Brooke would tense when Dad called, how she'd been asking subtle questions about our finances, about insurance policies, how she'd been photographing things in our house family heirlooms, paintings, even my grandfather's old watch that sat in my dresser drawer. Then Grace came to me one evening holding her grandmother's pearl necklace. "Dad, why was this in Mom's purse?" "What?" "Grandma's pearls, the ones from her jewelry box. They were in Mom's purse, wrapped in tissue paper." My blood went cold. "Are you sure?" "I was looking for gum. Dad, why would Mom take Grandma's necklace?" "I don't know, baby, but thank you for telling me. Can you put them back in Grandma's room without saying anything?" Grace nodded, but her eyes were worried. "Dad, is Mom in trouble?" "I don't know yet, but we're going to figure it out." That night I searched the house while Brooke was at another showing. I found more things that didn't belong: Dad's cufflinks, Mom's antique brooch, even a signed baseball from my grandfather's collection. She was stealing from my parents. From her own family. When Julian called 2 days later, his voice was grim. "We need to meet. Now." This time I didn't wait for him to speak. "She's stealing from my parents." "You know? I found things." "What did you find?" Julian pulled out a new folder, thicker than the last one. "Your instincts were right. This goes way deeper than an affair." He spread out bank statements, photographs, email printouts. "She's been systematically selling your family's things online. Small items, nothing anyone would notice missing right away. She's made about $30,000 in the last 2 months." Jesus. That's not the worst part. Julian pulled out another set of documents. She's been in contact with your father. Frequently. And Blake. She's been threatening him. The world tilted. What? I don't have all the details, but there are records of payments from your father to Brooke, large ones. 50,000 here, 30,000 there. All in cash withdrawals from his personal account. That doesn't make sense. It does if she's blackmailing him. I stared at the evidence, trying to make sense of it. Blackmailing him with what? That I don't know. But Blake, you need to talk to your father. Whatever she has on him, it's serious enough that he's paid her over $200,000 in the last 6 months. I left Julian there at the turnout and drove straight to my parents' house. Dad's truck was in the driveway. Mom's car gone her book club night. I found him in his study, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at nothing. We need to talk, I said. He looked up at me, and I saw he'd been crying. You know, I know she's blackmailing you. I don't know why. Dad was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a letter. Brooke's handwriting. William, you have 48 hours to get me another $50,000 or everyone knows about Seattle. Your wife, your sons, your precious reputation, all of it goes away unless you pay. You know I have proof. B. Seattle? I looked at my father. What happened in Seattle? And then he told me. 20 years ago, a business trip, too much wine, a woman who wasn't my mother, one night that he'd regretted every day since. How did Brooke find out? I don't know, but she has photos, old ones from a security camera at the hotel. She has the woman's name, everything. Dad's voice broke. I couldn't let your mother find out. Not after all these years. It would destroy her. So you paid her. What else could I do? She's your wife, Blake, the mother of your children. I thought if I paid her, it would end. But it didn't. No, she just kept asking for more. I stood there holding the letter, feeling the last piece of my old life crumble. My wife wasn't just a cheater and a thief. She was a monster who would destroy her own family for money. Dad, we're going to fix this. How? I don't know yet, but I promise you, she's not going to get away with this. I left my father's house with the letter and a new resolve. Brooke had crossed every line there was to cross. She'd betrayed me, stolen from us, blackmailed my father. Tomorrow I'd meet with Julian again. We'd make a plan. Set a trap, document everything. The harvest was coming, whether Brooke knew it or not, and I was going to make sure that when it did, she'd learn what happened when you poisoned the vines. Chapter 4. The morning after learning about the blackmail, I stood in our bathroom staring at my reflection while Brooke hummed in the shower. The man in the mirror looked older, harder. 3 months of lies had carved new lines around my eyes. Blake, can you grab me a towel? Her voice was casual, comfortable. The voice of a woman who had no idea her husband knew everything. I passed her the towel through the shower curtain, and she grabbed it with a quick, "Thanks, babe." The pet name made my skin crawl. This was my new reality, living with someone I knew was systematically destroying my family while pretending everything was normal. It was like swallowing glass with every smile, every good morning, every kiss on the cheek she still expected. I might be late again tonight, she said, stepping out of the shower. The Morrison estate is having another showing. The Morrisons had moved to Florida 3 months ago. Their estate wasn't even on the market. That's fine. I'll handle dinner with the girls. She paused in toweling her hair, looked at me with something that might have been guilt. You're a good father, Blake. Just doing my job. No, really. She came closer, still wrapped in her towel, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married. I know I've been distracted lately. Work's been crazy, but I want you to know I appreciate everything you do. The words might have meant something if I hadn't seen her room key from the Ritz yesterday, if I didn't know she was meeting Connor again this afternoon, if my father wasn't sitting at home, drowning in shame and fear. Thanks, I managed. She kissed my cheek and went to get dressed. I watched her choose her outfit carefully, not the conservative real estate agent clothes, but something softer, more expensive, the kind of thing Connor would appreciate. After she left, I called Julian. I need to move faster than we planned. What happened? I can't keep living like this, playing house while she destroys everything. We need to set the trap now. Blake, These things take time. My father already paid her $200,000. How much more time do you think we have before she bleeds him dry or decides blackmail isn't enough? Julian was quiet. Then, what do you have in mind? She wants money? Let's give her a reason to think she can get more. A lot more. You're thinking of telling her about the inheritance? No. But maybe it's time for dear old Dad to come into some money. An investment that paid off. Something that would make him a much more valuable target. That's dangerous. Could push her to do something desperate. She's already desperate. That's why she's taking bigger risks. Stealing from my parents' house, getting sloppy with Connor. We use that desperation. All right. Let me work on something. Give me 2 days. Those 2 days were hell. I went through the motions at work, but Tony noticed. You okay, boss? You seem different. I'd been spacing out while he explained something about the new irrigation system. Just family stuff. Anything I can help with? Not unless you know how to fix a marriage that's already dead. Tony's face softened. Ah, sorry, man. That's rough. It is what it is. That afternoon, I stopped by the bank to move some money around, making sure Brooke couldn't access any joint accounts if things went south quickly. The banker, Mrs. Chen, who'd known me since I was a kid, noticed my hands shaking as I signed the papers. Everything all right, Blake? Just protecting my assets. She nodded knowingly. In a small town, bank tellers see all the warning signs of a marriage falling apart: separate accounts, changed beneficiaries, withdrawn college funds. That evening, Brooke came home in a spectacular mood. She was practically glowing, and I knew that glow. It was her Connor glow, her just-got-laid glow. Girls, I have great news, she announced at dinner. I just closed a huge deal, massive commission. I think we should celebrate this weekend. Maybe drive up to San Francisco? I have a soccer tournament, Grace said flatly. Oh, right. Well, maybe next weekend. Can we afford it? Olivia asked innocently. Dad's always saying we need to be careful with money. Brooke shot me a look. Your father's too cautious. Sometimes you have to live a little. Is that what you've been doing? Grace's voice was sharp. Living a little? The table went silent. Brooke stared at Grace, who stared right back. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just seems like you've been living a lot lately. All those late nights, new clothes, that necklace you said Mrs. Morrison gave you, even though she called here looking for you last week. Brooke's face went pale. Grace, I don't appreciate. And I don't appreciate being lied to, Grace shot back. We're not stupid, Mom. We know something's going on. Grace, that's enough, I said quietly, though part of me wanted to let her continue. Grace pushed back from the table. May I be excused? Go ahead. After she left, Olivia quickly followed. Brooke and I sat in silence. You've turned them against me, she said finally. I haven't said a word to them. You don't have to. It's the way you look at me, like I'm some kind of criminal. The irony was so thick I could taste it. How do I look at you, Brooke? Like you don't love me anymore. I considered my words carefully. Do you love me? She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. That's honest, at least. Blake. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. What happened to us? You tell me. She stood abruptly. I'm going for a drive. Clear my head. After she left, I found Grace in her room, crying. I'm sorry, Dad. I shouldn't have said those things. Hey, no. I sat on her bed, pulled her close. You have every right to your feelings. Is she cheating on you? The direct question caught me off guard. What makes you think that? I'm not blind. The way she dresses now, the secret phone calls, the way she smells different when she comes home, like men's cologne. My 16-year-old daughter forced to grow up too fast. It's complicated, sweetheart. That means yes. That means I'm handling it. Are you getting divorced? I don't know yet. But whatever happens, you and Olivia are my priority. Always. She hugged me tighter. I love you, Dad. Love you too, baby. The next day, Julian called with the plan. Okay, here's what we do. Your father is going to let it slip to Brooke that he's come into money. An old investment in a tech startup that just went public. $3 million. She'll verify that. Already handled. I've got a friend who can create enough of a paper trail to make it believable if she does basic checking. The key is, the money is supposedly tied up for 60 days due to SEC regulations. That gives us time to set the trap. What kind of trap? She's going to want that money. Based on her pattern, she'll either increase the blackmail or try something more dramatic. Either way, we'll be ready. And Connor? I've got something special planned for him. Turns out one of those forgeries he sold was to a very connected collector who doesn't take kindly to being cheated. That information might accidentally find its way to the right people. That evening, Dad came for dinner. He played his part perfectly, mentioning casually over dessert that his old college roommate's startup had finally gone public. "Remember Tom Chen?" he said to Brooke. "He begged me to invest 20 years ago. I threw in $50,000 just to shut him up. Guess what it's worth now?" Brooke's eyes sharpened. "Oh, $3 million, give or take. Of course, it's all tied up in SEC paperwork for the next 2 months, but still, not bad for a forgotten investment." "That's amazing, William." Her smile was predatory. "You must be so relieved." "It'll be nice to have some security," Dad said, and I saw him suppress a shudder as Brooke reached over to squeeze his hand. "Family takes care of family," she said sweetly. After Dad left, Brooke was on her phone immediately, texting rapidly. Planning with Connor, no doubt. The next few days were a study in watching someone's greed consume them. Brooke was distracted, constantly calculating something in her head. She started asking Dad questions about the investment, about when exactly the money would be available, about whether he'd told Mom yet. "I wouldn't want her to get too excited before it's final," Brooke said. "You know how she is about money." "My wife of 40 years? Yes, I know how she is," Dad replied dryly. Meanwhile, I was quietly documenting everything. Julian had given me a small camera that looked like a phone charger. I placed it in the living room where Brooke often took her calls. The footage was damning. Conversations with Connor about the windfall, discussions about how to maximize the opportunity, even a call where she explicitly said, "He'll pay more now. He has more to lose." But it was what happened next that truly showed me who I'd married. Friday afternoon, Mom called me crying. "Blake, my mother's ring is gone. The one from my jewelry box." "Are you sure?" "I've looked everywhere. It was there yesterday, I know it was." I knew where it was, too. Probably being evaluated at Connor's gallery, ready to be sold to fund their new life together. That night, I confronted Brooke. Not about everything, just the ring. "Mom's ring is missing." "Oh no, the diamond one." "Her mother's ring, Brooke. The one that's been in the family for 3 generations. Maybe she misplaced it. You know how she is lately? A bit forgetful." "She's not forgetful." "Well, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe someone broke in. Through the locked door? Past the alarm? To steal one ring and nothing else?" She shrugged. Strange things happen. I stared at her, this woman I'd loved, who'd given me 2 beautiful daughters, who was now gaslighting me about stealing from my mother. If that ring shows up at a pawn shop or an art gallery, there will be consequences. Her face flushed. "Are you accusing me of something?" "Should I be?" "I can't believe you'd think I'd steal from your parents." "What kind of person do you think I am?" "I'm starting to wonder." She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door. I slept on the couch, staring at the ceiling, planning. The next morning, a Saturday, Brooke left early for her showings. I called Julian. "We need to escalate." "What happened?" "She stole my grandmother's ring. My mom's crying, my dad's a wreck, and I'm done playing defense." "What do you want to do?" "Set up the sting, the fake open house you mentioned. Let's catch her trying to sell the stolen items." "That's risky. If she suspects anything, she won't. She's too confident, too greedy. She thinks she's smarter than everyone." "All right, I'll need a week to set it up properly. Can you hold on that long?" "I'll have to." That week was the longest of my life. I watched Brooke continue her affair, continue her thefts, continue her blackmail. Dad withdrew another 50,000, his hands shaking as he handed her the cash in a parking lot. Julian filmed the whole exchange from his car. But I also used that time to protect what mattered. I met with my lawyer, set up trusts for the girls that Brooke couldn't touch. I documented every asset, every family heirloom, every piece of evidence. And late at night, while Brooke slept beside me, I'd stand at the window looking out at my vineyard and remind myself that this was necessary, that sometimes you had to let the infection spread to see how deep it went before you could cut it out completely. The night before the sting, Grace came to find me in the garage where I was pretending to fix something I'd already fixed 3 times. Dad, whatever you're planning, be careful. What makes you think I'm planning something? Because I know you. You're not the kind of man who sits back and takes it. You're patient, you're smart, but you're not passive. When did you get so wise? When my family started falling apart and I had to grow up fast. I hugged her. I'm sorry you have to go through this. Just promise me something. What? When this is over, when the truth comes out, we'll still be a family. Maybe not with Mom, but you, me, and Olivia. And Grandma and Grandpa. We'll still be together. I promise, no matter what happens, family comes first. She nodded against my chest. Then do what you have to do. The next morning, I woke up knowing everything was about to change. The trap was set, the players were in position, and the truth was about to be uncorked like a vintage wine that had been aging in darkness for too long. Brooke was humming in the shower again, preparing for what she thought was just another day of deception. She had no idea that by sunset, her house of cards would come crashing down. I stood at the window, watching the sun rise over the vineyard, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not for my marriage that was dead and buried under too many lies to count, but hope for what came after. Hope for a life built on truth instead of deception. The harvest was here, and it was time to separate the good fruit from the bad. Chapter 5. The study door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly Dad's house, the one I'd grown up in, where Mom still kept fresh flowers in every room, felt like a crime scene. Dad sat behind his oak desk, the one where he'd helped me with homework a lifetime ago, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Tell me everything, I said, my voice steadier than my hands. He poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, offered me the bottle. I took it, needing something to burn away the taste of betrayal that had been living in my mouth for weeks. It started 6 months ago, Dad began, his voice rough like sandpaper. Brooke came to me about an investment opportunity. Said she had a client who needed a silent partner for a real estate flip. I should have known something was off when she insisted we meet alone. Where? That coffee shop on State Street, the one your mother hates because they play music too loud. He took a sip, grimaced. She had a manila folder. At first I thought it was property listings. Then she pulled out the photos. My stomach clenched. The Seattle photos. 20 years old, but clear as day. Me walking into the Fairmont Hotel with... He paused. Couldn't say her name. Security footage, Blake. Time-stamped. How the hell did she even get those? Connor, I said, the pieces clicking together. His family has connections everywhere. Old money opens old doors. Dad nodded, staring into his glass like it held answers. She was so calm about it, like we were discussing the weather. Said she knew it would destroy Mom, destroy our reputation, maybe even hurt my business. All those construction contracts with the city. Gone if this came out. So you paid her. What else could I do? His voice cracked, and for the first time since I was 8 and broke my arm falling from a tree, I saw my father cry. Your mother. She forgave me once, 20 years ago. I promised her, swore on everything holy, that I'd never hurt her again. If she found out I'd hidden this, that there were photos. I walked around the desk, put my hand on his shoulder. Dad, this isn't your fault. Isn't it? I created the ammunition she's using. You made a mistake 2 decades ago. She's the one committing crimes now. He looked up at me, and I saw something shift in his eyes from shame to anger. $500,000, Blake. She's bled me for $500,000, and last week she asked for more. Said inflation affects everyone. She actually said that? While smiling, That same smile she uses at family dinners. He stood, paced to the window overlooking Mom's rose garden. I keep thinking about Grace and Olivia. What kind of mother does this to her children's grandfather? The kind who's sleeping with an art dealer while stealing from our family. Dad turned sharply. She's having an affair? I pulled out my phone, showed him one of Julian's photos, Brooke and Connor at the hotel. Dad's face darkened like a storm rolling in over the vineyard. That pendejo, he muttered, slipping into Spanish the way he did when truly angry. In my house? At my table? Eating my food while... He stopped, took a breath. How long have you known? About the affair? A few weeks. Julian's been investigating. But Dad, we can use this. All of it. How? I sat on the edge of his desk, the same spot where I'd sat as a kid watching him work. She's going to ask for more money, right? She's greedy, desperate. Connor's broke. Julian found out his gallery is hemorrhaging money. They need cash for their new life together. You want to set her up. I want to bury her. The words came out harder than I intended. She's destroyed our marriage. She's stealing from us. And now she's torturing you. It ends now. Dad was quiet for a moment, then walked to his safe. He spun the combination Mom's birthday. It had always been Mom's birthday, and pulled out an envelope. She sent this yesterday. I read Brooke's latest demand, her handwriting neat and precise like everything else about her public persona. Another $50,000, or she'd send the photos to Mom's entire book club, the construction board, even the local newspaper. She's escalating, I said. She knows I got that bid for the new city hall, thinks I'm flush with cash. When does she want it? Friday. Same place as always, the parking lot behind the old mission. 3 days. I pulled out my phone, called Julian. We need to move the timeline up, I said when he answered. Can you be ready by Friday? For what? To catch a blackmailer in the act. There was a pause. I'll make it happen. You want full surveillance? Everything. Video, audio, the works. And Julian? Call Claire Davis. We're going to need law enforcement on standby. After I hung up, Dad was looking at me with something like pride. You've thought this through. I've had time, lying next to her every night, pretending I don't know what she is, yeah. I've had time to think. How do you stand it? By remembering that every lie she tells, every crime she commits is another nail in her coffin. By protecting Grace and Olivia from the explosion until it's time. By knowing that justice is coming, even if it's wearing work boots instead of a badge. Dad refilled our glasses. Your grandfather would be proud. He always said you had steel under that soft heart. Abuelo also said that the best wine comes from stressed vines. You think we're the stressed vines? I think we're about to find out what kind of wine we make. That evening, I met Julian and Claire at a dive bar outside town, the kind of place where nobody asked questions, and the bartender minded his own business. Claire Davis had been a family friend for 15 years, had prosecuted some of the Valley's biggest cases. She looked like someone's grandmother until you saw her in court, then she became a shark. Blake, I'm sorry about all this, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Don't be sorry. Be ruthless. She smiled, the kind that made defense attorneys nervous. That I can do. Julian filled me in on the basics. Extortion, theft, fraud, your wife's been busy. You don't know the half of it. Julian spread his files on the scarred wooden table. Actually, we might. I've been digging deeper. Brooke's got a pattern. This isn't her first rodeo. My blood chilled. What? Remember that couple she sold a house to 3 years ago? The Washingtons? They filed a complaint saying family jewelry went missing during the showing. It was dropped when the items mysteriously reappeared. She's been doing this for years? Small scale, careful, but Connor changed the game. He gave her connections, a way to move the stolen goods. She got greedy. Claire reviewed the evidence, her expression growing darker with each page. This is solid. With the blackmail recording, we can put her away for serious time. But Blake, you understand what this means? Once we start, there's no going back. There's already no going back. My marriage is dead. My father's being tortured. and my kids are watching their family fall apart. The only choice is forward. Through her. Through her. Claire pulled out a legal pad, started sketching out a plan. Friday, we record the blackmail exchange. I'll have plainclothes officers nearby, but we won't move immediately. We want her comfortable, thinking she got away with it. Why wait? Because criminals who think they're safe get sloppy. And according to Julian, she's planning something bigger. Julian nodded. The fake open house. She's already advertising it to collectors through Connor's connections. If we can catch her selling stolen goods and recorded blackmail, that's federal charges on top of state. How long do we wait? 2 weeks, maybe 3. Can you hold it together that long? I thought about going home tonight, kissing Brooke's cheek, asking about her day like nothing had changed. I've been holding it together this long. There's one more thing, Julian said, pulling out a new folder. Connor Johnson, he's not just broke, he's desperate, owes money to some serious people. The kind who break fingers over late payments. How serious? Vegas serious. He's been selling forgeries to cover the debt, but they're catching on. He needs a big score soon, or he's going to be swimming with the fishes in Lake Tahoe. That's why Brooke's escalating. She's not just funding their affair, she's trying to save his life. While destroying ours, Claire added. Poetic. We spent another hour refining the plan. Every detail had to be perfect. One mistake and Brooke would rabbit, maybe disappear with Connor and whatever she could grab. I couldn't let that happen, not just for justice, but for Grace and Olivia. They deserve to see that actions have consequences, that truth matters. When I got home, the house was quiet except for the TV murmuring in the living room. Brooke was on the couch, laptop open, working on listings. She looked up when I walked in, smiled that practiced smile. Long day? Tony had me checking the entire eastern block. Think we saved most of the vines from that fungus? Good. Can't have the grape picker out of work. There was that edge again, that contempt she couldn't quite hide anymore. How was your day? Productive. Very productive. She turned her laptop so I couldn't see the screen. I might have a huge buyer interested in that oceanfront property. The Morrison place? Different one. You wouldn't know it. Because it doesn't exist, I thought. Because you're planning to rob our family blind and run off with your lover. I'm going to check on the girls, I said. Grace is at Jessica's studying. Olivia's in her room. I knocked on Olivia's door, found her FaceTiming with friends. She ended the call when she saw my face. Dad? You okay? Just tired, Mia. She studied me with those eyes that saw too much, just like her mother's used to before they turned cold. Is it about Mom? What makes you say that? She's different, meaner, like she doesn't want to be here anymore. I sat on her bed, pulled her into a hug. Whatever happens with your mom and me, you and Grace are my priority. Always. Understand? Are you getting divorced? I don't know yet. But if we do, it's not your fault. It's not Grace's fault. It's between adults who... I searched for words that wouldn't poison her against her mother, despite everything. Who grew in different directions? Dad? Yeah? I know about the jewelry. Grandma's ring. I saw Mom take it. My heart stopped. What? Last week, when she thought I was at school. I came back from my textbook and saw her in Grandma's room. She put the ring in her purse. I didn't know what to do. Why didn't you tell me? Because I kept hoping I was wrong, that maybe she was getting it cleaned or something. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But she wasn't, was she? No, baby, she wasn't. Is she in trouble? Yes. Bad trouble? Yes. Olivia was quiet for a long moment, then looked up at me with steel in her eyes, her grandfather's steel. Good. That night, I lay in bed next to my wife, listening to her breathe, and thought about the trap we were setting. In 3 days, she'd walk into it thinking she was the predator. She had no idea she'd already been caught, that every move she made now was just tightening the noose. Her phone lit up with a text. From my angle, I could see it was from Connor. 3 more weeks, baby. Then we're free. 3 weeks. That must be when they plan to run. After the fake open house, after bleeding Dad dry, after destroying everything we'd built. I smiled in the darkness. 3 weeks. They'd never make it 3 days. Chapter 6. Friday came like a storm you could smell on the wind, inevitable and destructive. I stood in the vineyard at dawn, watching the sun paint the mountains gold, trying to center myself for what was coming. The vines were budding now, tiny green promises reaching toward the light. In a few months, they'd be heavy with fruit. By harvest, Brooke would be in custody. "You ready for this?" Julian's voice came from behind me. "Ready as anyone can be to watch their wife commit felony extortion." He handed me a coffee, black, no sugar. "The equipment's in place. I've got 3 cameras with clear sight lines to the meeting spot, audio transmitters that could pick up a whisper at 50 yards. And Claire? She's got 2 plainclothes units standing by. They won't move until we give the signal. After she takes the money, after she threatens him again. We need her words, Blake, clear and undeniable." Dad joined us looking like he hadn't slept. His hands shook slightly as he took the coffee Julian offered. "You don't have to do this," I told him. "We could use an undercover." "No." His voice was firm. "She made this personal. I'm going to look her in the eye when she thinks she's won. I want to see her face when she realizes what she's lost." "You remember what to say?" "Every word. Claire coached me for 2 hours yesterday." The plan was simple. Dad would meet Brooke at their usual spot, the abandoned parking lot behind the San Luis Mission. He'd give her the money, but first, he'd make her spell out her threats again. Get her confident, get her talking. Criminals love to gloat when they think they've won. "I should go," Dad said. "Don't want to change my routine. She knows I work Fridays." After he left, Julian and I drove to our position, a hill overlooking the mission with clear views of the parking lot. The tech setup looked like something from a spy movie. Monitors, recording equipment, transmitters. "You ever think about how different your life would be if you'd just told her about the money from the start?" Julian asked, adjusting a camera angle. "Every day. But then I wonder if she would have just been smarter about it, hidden the affairs better, stolen more carefully. At least this way, I know who she really is." That's an expensive lesson. The best ones usually are. At 11:45, Brooke's white Lexus pulled into the lot. She sat there for 5 minutes, probably checking for cops or witnesses. Then Dad's truck appeared, parking exactly where she'd told him to. "Audio's live," Julian said, handing me headphones. Dad's voice came through clear. "I have your money." "Good boy," Brooke replied, and the condescension in her voice made my hands clench. "You know, William, you could have made this so much easier if you'd just cooperated from the start. I've given you $500,000. And I've given you silence. Seems like a fair trade." "It's destroying me, Brooke. Your family." She laughed, actually laughed. "Family? Your son treats me like the help, makes me beg for grocery money while he plays in the dirt. Some family." "Blake loves you. Blake loves his vines more than me, but that's about to change." "What do you mean?" "Nothing you need to worry about. Just know that after today, I won't be your problem anymore." She was practically confessing to planning to run. Julian zoomed in on her face, cold, calculating, nothing like the woman who'd stood beside me at our wedding, promising to love and honor. "The money," she said, holding out her hand. "First, I need your word this ends here." "My word?" Another laugh. "Oh, William, sweet, stupid William, this ends when I say it ends. You think 50,000 is enough? Your construction company just got that city hall contract. That's what, 10 million over 5 years? I said I'd keep quiet about Seattle, and I will, for a price. Consider this a down payment on my continued silence." "You're never going to stop, are you?" "Why would I? You're a gold mine, William, a guilty, terrified gold mine." She moved closer to him, and even from our distance I could see Dad tense. "Unless you want Margaret to get an anonymous package with those photos. Maybe a nice note explaining how her husband of 40 years has been lying to her face." "You're a monster," Dad said quietly. "I'm a survivor. There's a difference." She held out her hand again. "The money. Now." Dad handed her the envelope. She didn't even check it, just stuffed it in her purse. Same time next month. Make it 75,000. Inflation, you understand. Brooke. Or I could just call Margaret now. I have her number. We're family, remember? The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Julian looked at me, nodded. We had everything. But Brooke wasn't done. She pulled out her phone, showed Dad something on the screen. See this email? It's addressed to the construction board, the mayor's office, and that sweet little newspaper that loves scandal. One click, William. That's all it takes to destroy everything you've built. Please, 75,000, next month, or I hit send. She turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and William, don't even think about telling Blake. You know what I'm capable of. Imagine what I could do if I was really motivated. She drove away, leaving Dad standing alone in the parking lot. I watched him on the monitor shoulders, shaking, head in his hands. My father, who'd built buildings that would stand for generations, brought to his knees by the woman I'd married. We got it all, Julian said quietly. Every threat, every word. Send it to Claire. I drove down to Dad, found him sitting on the tailgate of his truck. Without words, I sat beside him. Sometimes being Mexican meant understanding that men could cry together and still be men. She's going down, Dad. I know. This is the last time she'll hurt you. What about you? This is your wife, the mother of your children. She stopped being my wife the moment she betrayed us. Now she's just someone who looks like someone I used to love. We sat there for a while, watching the mission bells catch the afternoon light. This place had stood for over 200 years, survived earthquakes and fires and time itself. We'd survive Brooke. That evening, I met Claire at her office. She'd already reviewed the recordings, had transcripts printed and highlighted. It's textbook extortion, she said. Clear threats, specific demands, proof of payment. Any jury would convict. But we're not moving yet. No, Julian tells me there's more coming. This fake open house? I nodded. She's been stealing family heirlooms, selling them through Connor. If we can catch that too, we can put them both away for a long time. Claire leaned back in her chair. Blake, I need you to understand something. Once we arrest her, it's going to be public. Very public. Your family will survive. Grace and Olivia are stronger than Brooke thinks. And you? I'm already dead inside, Claire. Have been since I saw her kissing Connor. Now I'm just waiting for the funeral. She studied me for a moment. No, you're not dead. You're angry. There's a difference. Feels the same. It's not. Dead people don't seek justice. They don't protect their families. They don't carefully plan the downfall of those who hurt them. She smiled slightly. You're very much alive, Blake. You're just burning. What do I do with the fire? You use it. You let it forge you into something harder. And when this is over, when she's behind bars and your family is safe, then you figure out who you are in the ashes. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through the vineyard roads. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and red colors like wine, like blood, like the end of things. When I walked in, Brooke was cooking dinner, playing the perfect wife now that she thought she'd won. She hummed while she worked, that same song from the shower, the one Connor probably played for her. You're in a good mood, I said. Closed a big deal today. Commission should be huge. That's great. I watched her lie without flinching, smooth as aged whiskey. We should celebrate. Maybe later. I have a showing tonight. On a Friday. You know how it is. No? Clients want what they want when they want it. Grace and Olivia came down for dinner, and we sat around the table like a normal family. Brooke talked about her day all lies. The girls talked about school all truth. I carved the chicken and wondered how many more family dinners we'd have before it all exploded. Mom, Grace said suddenly, Jessica's mom saw you at lunch today, at that French place. She said you were with someone. Brooke didn't miss a beat. Probably saw me with Mr. Morrison. We were discussing his property. Jessica's mom said it was a younger man, tall, dark hair. Oh, that must have been his son. He's handling the sale for his father. The Morrisons didn't have a son, only daughters. I watched Grace process this, saw the moment she realized her mother was lying. Our eyes met across the table, and I gave the smallest shake of my head. Not yet. My mistake, Grace said quietly. After dinner, Brooke left for her showing Connor's bed, most likely. The girls and I cleaned up in silence until Olivia spoke. How much longer, Dad? What do you mean? How much longer do we have to pretend? I looked at my daughters 16 and 14, forced to grow up too fast, asked to carry secrets too heavy for their years. 2 weeks, maybe less. And then the truth comes out. Grace dried a plate slowly, deliberately. Will it hurt? Yes. More than this? No. Nothing hurts more than living a lie. That night, unable to sleep, I went to my hidden office in the vineyard. I pulled up the security footage Julian had sent Brooke taking the money, making her threats, destroying my father. I watched it 3 times, each viewing making me angrier and calmer simultaneously. She'd made her choice. Hell, she'd made 1,000 choices, each one a step away from us and toward Connor, toward greed, toward cruelty. Now those choices would have consequences. I pulled up the email Julian had sent about the fake open house, 2 weeks away. Brooke had already started moving pieces: Dad's jukebox, Mom's jewelry, even my grandfather's vintage wine collection. She thought she was being clever, thought we were too trusting to notice. She was half right. We had been too trusting, but that was over now. I poured myself a glass of wine, a 1995 Pinot, one of Grandfather's last batches before he died. It tasted like earth and smoke and time itself. He'd once told me that wine was just controlled rot, that the trick was knowing when to stop the decay before it ruined everything. 2 weeks. Then we'd stop the rot. My phone buzzed. A text from Julian. Connor just bought 2 one-way tickets to Costa Rica. Date of departure day after the open house. So that was their plan. Steal everything they could, then disappear. Leave me with the wreckage, the daughters with questions, the family with shame. I typed back, "They're not getting on that plane." "No," Julian responded. "They're not." I finished the wine, locked the office, and walked back through the vineyard. The vines rustled in the night wind, whispering secrets in Spanish and English and the universal language of growing things. They'd been here before me, would be here after me. They'd survived drought and flood and fungus. We'd survive Brooke. Chapter 7. The Sunday after the blackmail recording, Brooke became a different creature entirely, a wounded animal trying to convince everyone it wasn't bleeding. She made breakfast pancakes with fresh strawberries, the girls' favorite. She suggested a family trip to the beach. She even asked about my work in the vineyard, pretending to care about bricks levels and soil acidity. It was like watching someone perform a play they'd forgotten the lines to. "You feeling okay?" I asked, playing along. "Never better. Just realized I've been so focused on work lately. Need to remember what's important." She squeezed my shoulder as she passed, and I had to fight not to flinch. Grace and Olivia exchanged glances. They knew something had shifted, could feel it in the air like the pressure change before a storm. That afternoon, while Brooke was at another showing, I sat the girls down. "I need you both to understand what's about to happen," I said carefully. "Your mother has done some bad things that are going to come to light soon." "The stealing?" Olivia asked. "That and more." "The affair?" Grace's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. I nodded. "How did you—" "Dad, we're not blind. She comes home smelling like cologne. She's constantly on her phone. She bought lingerie and hid it in her gym bag." "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Are you getting divorced?" Olivia asked. "Yes." "Is she going to jail?" Grace asked. I hesitated, then decided they deserved the truth. "Probably." Neither girl cried. They just sat there, processing, and I realized they'd been mourning the loss of their mother for months already. "What do you need from us?" Grace finally asked. "Just be yourselves. Go to school. See your friends. When people ask questions, and they will tell them it's a family matter. You don't owe anyone explanations." "What about Grandpa and Grandma?" "They know what's happening. They're here for you, always." Olivia crawled into my lap like she hadn't done in years. "I'm glad it's ending, Dad. The pretending is killing us." That evening, Julian called with an update. "I've been tracking Connor's communications. He's getting desperate. His creditors are closing in. He's been pushing Brooke to accelerate their timeline. How do you know? I may have cloned her phone. Is that legal? Do you care? Not even a little. She's moved up the fake open house. This Saturday instead of next. She's already contacted 3 collectors, including Sadie Thompson. 5 days. Can you hold it together for 5 more days? I looked at the family photo on my dresser, all 4 of us at last Christmas, smiling, looking perfect. Brooke's hand on my shoulder, my arms around the girls. We looked happy. We looked like liars. 5 days, I agreed. Monday, I went to see Mom. She was in her garden, tending roses with the focused intensity of someone trying not to think about other things. Blake. She didn't look up. Your father told me. About Brooke? About all of it, Seattle, the blackmail, everything. I knelt beside her, helped her pull weeds. I'm sorry, Mom. For what? You didn't do anything wrong. My wife is not you. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were fierce. I've been married to your father for 40 years. We've survived worse than old mistakes and greedy daughters-in-law. You forgave him? For Seattle? I forgave him 20 years ago, mijo. What hurts is that he didn't trust me enough to tell me about the blackmail. That he suffered alone because he was protecting me. She yanked a weed with particular violence. I'm not fragile, Blake. Neither are your daughters. Stop trying to protect us from truth. It's ugly truth. Most truth is, that doesn't make it less necessary. She stood, brushed dirt from her knees. When? Saturday. During the fake open house? I stared at her. How did you... Patricia at Murphy's knows everything. She saw Brooke moving your grandfather's jukebox into a van. Asked me if we were redecorating. Mom's smile was sharp. I told her we were just taking out the trash. That night, Brooke came home late, flushed and excited. She'd been with Connor. I could smell his cologne, see the beard burn on her neck. Big showing? I asked. The biggest. This could change everything for us, Blake. Change how? She looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time in months. What if I told you we could have more? A bigger house, better cars, private schools for the girls? I'd ask what the catch is. No catch, just opportunities presenting themselves. Through your work? Through knowing the right people. Connor. She meant Connor. Was she actually thinking of leaving me for him? Taking my daughters to live with that pretentious fraud? I'm happy with what we have, I said. Her face fell. Of course you are. You've never wanted more, have you? Never wanted to be more than a grape picker. There are worse things to be. Name one. A liar, a thief, a betrayer of trust. She flinched but recovered quickly. Speaking in riddles now? Too much time in the sun, Blake. It's cooking your brain. Tuesday, Claire called me to her office. Kai Wilson was there, a tall, serious man who looked like he'd been carved from granite. Mr. Martinez, he shook my hand. I've reviewed the evidence. Your wife's real estate license isn't just at risk, she's looking at federal charges for wire fraud. Wire fraud? She's been conducting these fake sales across state lines. Some of the collectors are from Nevada, Arizona. That makes it federal. How much time could she get? Claire answered. Combined with the extortion and grand theft, 15 to 20 years. The number hit me like a punch. 20 years. The girls would be in their 30s when she got out. That seems harsh. She's stolen over $1 million in goods and cash, Blake, Claire said gently. She's destroyed families, betrayed trust at every level. The law doesn't care that she's a mother or that she was once a good person. It only cares what she did. And Connor? 5 to 10 as an accomplice. More if we can prove the forgery angle. Kai pulled out a tablet, showed me screenshots of online listings. These are your family's items. She's not even trying to hide them anymore. There was grandfather's watch, Mom's pearl necklace, even a painting that had hung in Dad's office for 30 years. Each item tagged with prices that made my stomach turn, not because they were high, but because they represented the value Brooke placed on our memories. Saturday, I said. We end this Saturday. You're sure you want to be there? Claire asked. We could handle it without you. No. I need to see her face when she realizes it's over. I need her to know that I know everything. Wednesday was Grace's soccer game. Brooke actually showed up, playing the devoted mother, cheering too loud, trying too hard. Other parents noticed, whispered behind their hands. The grape picker's wife, acting strange, marriage troubles, you know how it is. Grace scored 2 goals but barely acknowledged her mother's congratulations. After the game, she walked straight to me. "I can't do this much longer, Dad. 3 more days. She's planning something. I heard her on the phone with someone talking about transfers and account numbers." "Offshore accounts," Julian said when I called him. "She's moving the money from the blackmail overseas, preparing to run." "Can we stop it?" "Already done. Claire got a federal judge to freeze any accounts in her name. When she tries to access that money, she'll find nothing but ice." Thursday. Brooke was frantic. She kept checking her phone, her laptop, making calls in hushed tones. At dinner, she barely ate. "You okay?" I asked, all concern. "Just work stuff. Technical difficulties with some transactions." "Anything I can help with?" She looked at me with such contempt, it almost made me laugh. "What could you possibly know about complex financial transactions?" "You'd be surprised. Blake, you're a good man, a simple good man, but this is beyond you." If only she knew. If only she knew that I'd been managing a multi-billion-dollar empire while she thought I was pulling weeds. The irony was delicious and bitter, like dark chocolate with too much cacao. That night, she left again, probably to meet Connor, to plan, to panic. I used the time to walk through the house with Julian, identifying all the items she'd marked for theft. "She's been systematic," he noted, photographing everything. "Probably has a whole inventory." In her closet, we found a notebook with detailed lists of every valuable item in the house, their estimated worth, potential buyers. My family's entire history reduced to dollar signs. "She even priced out your wedding ring," Julian said, pointing to an entry. I looked at the simple gold band on my finger, the one she'd placed there 8 years ago with tears in her eyes, promising to love me forever. "How much?" $50. She wrote scrap gold next to it. I laughed, actually laughed. Our entire marriage, worth less than a tank of gas to her. Friday morning, the day before the sting, I woke to find Brooke already gone. A note on her pillow. "Early showing. Be back tonight. We need to talk. We need to talk." The 4 words every married man dreads. Did she know? Had Connor figured something out? I called Julian. "She might be on to us." "She's not. I've been monitoring everything. She's just nervous about tomorrow. Needs to make sure you'll be gone during the open house." "What did she tell people?" "That you're taking the girls to visit your aunt in Paso Robles. She even called your aunt to confirm you weren't coming." "My aunt's been dead for 3 years." "She called your cousin Maria, thinking it was your aunt. Maria played along, bless her." Family. Even the extended branches knew how to protect the tree. That afternoon, I stood in the vineyard with Tony, checking the vines one last time before everything changed. "You know," he said, apropos of nothing, "grapes are honest. They can't pretend to be something they're not. A bad grape is just bad. Can't hide it, can't dress it up. Just gotta cut it out before it ruins the whole bunch. You know, don't you? Blake, everyone knows. We're just waiting for you to do what needs doing. Tomorrow." "Good. This place needs truth more than it needs peace." That evening, Brooke came home with Chinese takeout from the expensive place, not our usual spot. "What's the occasion?" I asked. "Can't a wife treat her family?" She was manic, energy crackling off her like electricity before lightning. During dinner, she kept staring at us, me, Grace, Olivia, like she was memorizing our faces. "I want you to know," she said suddenly, "that everything I've done has been for this family." Grace set down her chopsticks. "Everything? The long hours, the networking, the sacrifices, all for you girls, for our future." "Mom," Olivia said quietly, "just stop." Brooke's face crumbled for just a moment, a flash of the woman she used to be, the one who sang the girls to sleep and made snow angels in the sand at the beach. Then it hardened again. "You'll understand when you're older." "We understand now," Grace said. "More than you think." They stared at each other across the table, mother and daughter, liar and truth-teller, the past and the future. I should get ready for tomorrow, Brooke said finally. Big day. You're still taking the girls to Maria's, right, Blake? That's the plan. Good, good. She stood, started clearing plates with shaking hands. It's better if you're not here. For the showing, I mean. Less complicated. Whatever you need. She looked at me then, and for just a second I saw fear in her eyes. Real, bone-deep fear. She knew something was wrong, could feel the noose tightening but couldn't see the rope. Blake? Yeah? I'm sorry. For what? She opened her mouth, closed it, shook her head. Nothing. Forget it. But I wouldn't forget. None of us would. Tomorrow, everything she'd built on lies would come crashing down, and her sorry would be worth exactly what she'd valued my wedding ring scrap metal. Nothing more. That night, I didn't sleep. I stood at the window, watching the vineyard sleep under the stars, and counted down the hours until the harvest of truth. Chapter 8. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in coastal fog, the kind that made the whole world feel like a secret about to be revealed. I was up before dawn, standing in the kitchen with a cup of coffee that might as well have been motor oil for all I tasted it. Brooke came down at 6, dressed like she was going to sell houses to movie stars' designer suit, diamonds I'd never seen before, heels that cost more than most people's rent. You look nice, I said, playing my part one last time. Important clients today. She smoothed her skirt, checked her phone for the 100th time. You should get the girls up soon. Long drive to Paso Robles. Actually, plans changed. Maria's sick. We're going to spend the day at the beach instead. Her face went white. What? No, you can't be here. I mean, the showing, it'll be chaotic. Better if you're gone. We'll stay out of your way. Promise. She was trapped. Insisting too hard would raise suspicions. Fine. Just keep the girls away from the house between noon and 4, okay? Whatever you need. She left without kissing anyone goodbye. At 9, I met Julian, Claire, and Kai at the command post they'd set up in an empty storefront down the street from the Target house, a massive Spanish colonial that had been vacant for 6 months. She arrived 20 minutes ago, Julian reported, monitoring his screens. Connor's there too, helping her set up. On the monitors, I watched my wife arrange my family's heirlooms like props in a play. The jukebox in the corner, the baseball collection on the mantel, grandmother's china displayed on the dining table like it was for sale at a garage sale. The buyers? I asked. Sadie Thompson just pulled up, Kai noted. The collector from San Francisco is right behind her. I watched Sadie enter, saw Brooke transform into the perfect hostess, charming, knowledgeable, just the right amount of desperate to make a deal. This estate sale is very exclusive, Brooke was saying through the audio feed. The family wants discretion. You understand? Of course, Sadie replied, already examining the jukebox. This is authentic? 1947 Wurlitzer. Been in the family for generations. They're heartbroken to sell, but you know how it is. Death taxes. Lies flowed from her mouth like wine from a broken barrel. Kai, you're up, Claire said. Kai straightened his tie, transformed into Kevin Walters, wealthy collector. I watched him enter the house, watched Brooke's eyes light up at the sight of another mark. Mr. Walters, so glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it. I hear you have some exceptional pieces. She gave him the tour, each lie more elaborate than the last. The baseball collection belonged to a reclusive Hollywood producer. The china was from railroad royalty. Even Mom's pearl necklace had a story worn by a senator's wife to Kennedy's inauguration. Impressive, Kai said. And these are all authenticated? Of course, I have all the paperwork. More lies. The only paperwork she had was forged certificates Connor had made. How much for the collection? The whole thing? Brooke's eyes went wide. The entire collection? I'm renovating a house in Montecito. These would be perfect. Well, I'd have to check with the family, but perhaps 300,000? Deal. I watched her try not to hyperventilate. 300,000. Enough to run, to start over, to fund her new life with Connor. I'll need to make some calls, she said. Can you give me an hour? Of course. As Kai left, Connor appeared from the back room. Through the cameras, I watched them embrace, Connor spinning her around. Baby, we did it! Brooke squealed. 300,000! Plus what we already have, that's enough. We can leave tonight. Tonight? Why wait? Your idiot husband won't even notice you're gone until Monday. Brooke hesitated. The girls will be fine. They have their father. But, Brooke, it's now or never. My creditors won't wait much longer. I watched her wrestle with it, saw the moment she made her choice. Okay. Tonight. That's our cue, Claire said, but I held up my hand. Wait, there's something else. On the monitor, Brooke was pulling out her phone, dialing. The call came through on the speaker Julian had set up. William, it's Brooke. Yes, I know what I said, but things have changed. I need the rest now, all of it. Don't play dumb, I know you have more. 100,000 or Margaret gets everything. Yes, today. She was trying to bleed my father one last time before running. The greed was bottomless. Now, I said. We moved as a unit. Claire and 2 uniformed officers through the front, Kai and Julian through the back, me right behind them. The look on Brooke's face when she saw us was worth every sleepless night, every forced smile, every moment of pretending. It was shock and fear and recognition all at once. Blake? Hello, Brooke. What are you, these are clients? No, Kai said, showing his badge. California Real Estate Board Criminal Investigation Division. And I'm Assistant District Attorney Claire Davis, Claire added. Brooke Martinez, you're under arrest for grand theft, wire fraud, and extortion. This is a mistake. Blake, tell them I pulled out the photo I'd been carrying our family standing next to the jukebox last Christmas. Interesting estate sale, considering that's our jukebox. Has been for 3 generations. Connor tried to run, made it about 3 feet before Julian clotheslined him with an arm like a tree branch. Going somewhere? Julian asked, zip-tying Connor's wrists. Blake, please, Brooke begged. I can explain. Explain what? The affair? The theft? The blackmail? I pulled out my phone, played the audio from yesterday. Everything I've done has been for this family. You recorded me? Just returning the favor. You recorded Dad, didn't you? Her face crumbled. You know about that? I know everything, Brooke. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I know about the offshore accounts frozen, by the way. I know about the plane tickets to Costa Rica canceled. I know about Connor's debts, his forgeries, all of it. How? Because unlike you, I pay attention to the people I claim to love. The officers cuffed her, the metal clicking like periods at the end of a sentence. The girls, she said desperately. What about our daughters? They're at the beach with their grandfather. They already know everything. They've known for weeks. You turned them against me. No, Brooke, you did that all by yourself. As they led her out, she turned back one last time. I know your secret, too. Nobody's that content being poor. You're hiding something. I smiled. Maybe, but unlike your secrets, mine never hurt anyone. The house emptied quickly. Evidence tagged and bagged, statements taken, justice served cold like revenge is supposed to be. Sadie Thompson approached me as I was loading the jukebox into Dad's truck. Mr. Martinez, I'm sorry about all this. I had no idea. Not your fault. Still, if there's anything I can do. Actually, there is. That baseball collection, one of them, was signed by Jackie Robinson. My grandfather caught it at a game in 1952. If you come across it in your circles, I'll make sure it finds its way home. By evening, the news had spread through town like wildfire through dry grass. Brooke Martinez, respected realtor, arrested for theft and extortion. Connor Johnson, prominent art dealer, charged as accomplice. The gossip mill was working overtime. I found Grace and Olivia at the beach where I'd sent them, building sandcastles with their grandfather like they were still little kids. Is it over? Grace asked. The arrest part, yeah. What happens now? Now we rebuild. Now we tell the truth. Now we stop pretending everything's perfect when it's not. Olivia looked at the sandcastle they'd built, then deliberately knocked it down. Sometimes you have to destroy something to build it better. Sometimes you do. That night, we had dinner at my parents' house. No one mentioned Brooke's empty chair. We talked about the vineyard, about school, about normal things. It wasn't perfect, there was too much pain for perfect, but it was honest. "Blake," Mom said as I was leaving, "what she said about you hiding something, it doesn't matter anymore." It might. At the trial, I thought about it. The empire, the billions, the elaborate deception I'd maintained for years. Then I'll tell the truth. All of it. That could change everything. Everything's already changed, Mom. At least this change would be my choice. Driving home through the vineyard, I thought about Brooke sitting in a cell tonight. Did she regret it? Did she think about the girls? Did she realize that Connor had already thrown her under the bus, claiming she'd manipulated him? Probably not. People like Brooke always found ways to be the victim in their own stories, but that was her story to tell now. Mine was different. Mine was about a man who'd hidden his fortune to test love and found it wanting. About a father who'd protected his children from ugly truths until they were strong enough to handle them. About a son who'd saved his father from a parasite in designer clothes. Tomorrow, the sun would rise over the vineyard again. The grapes would continue growing. Grace would have soccer practice. Olivia would FaceTime with her friends. Life would go on, scarred but not broken. And maybe eventually I'd tell them all the truth about the empire they'd inherit. But not tonight. Tonight, the only truth that mattered was that we were free from lies, even if we weren't free from pain. The harvest was over. Now came the crushing, the fermenting, the long wait to see what kind of wine we'd make from all this bitter fruit. But that was tomorrow's worry. Tonight, I was just a father going home to his daughters, a grape picker with dirty hands and a clear conscience, a man who'd finally learned the difference between keeping secrets and telling lies. The difference, it turned out, was love. Chapter 9. The Spanish colonial estate looked different in daylight, less like a stage for deception and more like what it really was, an empty house that had witnessed the end of my marriage. I stood in the doorway watching Julian and his team catalog evidence. Every family heirloom Brooke had tried to sell was tagged, photographed, documented. The jukebox sat in the corner like a witness to its own attempted murder. "Mr. Martinez." Kai Wilson approached, his investigator's badge still clipped to his jacket. "We need your statement about the items, proof of ownership." "I have photos going back decades," I said, pulling out my phone. "My grandfather with the jukebox in 1962. My father with the baseball collection when I was 5. Every Christmas, every birthday, these things were there." "Like ghosts," Grace said from behind me. I hadn't heard her arrive. She stood with Olivia, both of them looking older than their years in the afternoon sun streaming through the vacant house's windows. "What are you doing here?" "Grandpa brought us," Olivia said. "He said we should see it. All of it." Dad appeared in the doorway, his face carved from stone. "They deserve to know what their mother did, mijo. No more secrets." He was right. We'd protected them from enough ugly truths. Maybe witnessing this one would help them understand why everything was about to change. "Is that Grandpa's jukebox?" Grace walked over to it, ran her fingers along the carved initials MM for Martinez Martinez, a joke my grandparents had shared about their matching surnames. "Your mother was going to sell it for $30,000, Kai said gently. "To a collector who thought it was from an estate sale." $30,000? Olivia's voice cracked. "For our history?" "That's what it was worth to her," I said, the words bitter as burnt coffee. Julian emerged from the back room carrying a box. "Blake, you need to see this." Inside were documents, forged certificates of authenticity, fake provenance papers, even an elaborate backstory Connor had created for each item. Our family's Mexican-American heritage reduced to marketable fiction. "Look at this," Julian held up a paper. She claimed the baseball collection belonged to a mysterious Hollywood producer who dated Marilyn Monroe. "Your grandfather caught those balls at Dodger Stadium, right?" "Every Sunday for 15 years, Dad said quietly. "He'd take me and my brothers. Said baseball was America's way of saying sorry for all the rest." "Where's Mom now?" Grace asked. "At the house with a police escort packing a bag," Claire Davis said, entering with 2 uniformed officers. "She'll be processed this evening." "Processed," Olivia repeated, "like she's meat at a grocery store." It's legal terminology, sweetheart, Claire said kindly. No, it's perfect, Grace said, her voice hard. She processed our family like inventory. Now she gets processed by the system. The afternoon wore on as we reclaimed our heritage piece by piece. Each item had a story, a memory attached to it like DNA. The wine press my great-grandfather had brought from Guadalajara, the pearl necklace my grandmother wore to her citizenship ceremony, the painting my father bought with his first construction contract profit. 300,000, I said to no one in particular. She was going to run away with Connor for $300,000. Plus the $500,000 she extorted from me, Dad added. $800,000 to throw away 20 years, I calculated. $40,000 per year of marriage, about $110 per day. That's what we were worth. Don't do that, Grace said fiercely. Don't reduce us to her math. We're worth more than she could ever count. My 16-year-old daughter teaching me wisdom. As the sun started its descent toward the Pacific, painting the empty rooms gold and orange, I made a decision. I want to have a party, I announced. Everyone turned to stare. Blake, hermano, maybe you should sit down, Julian suggested. No, I'm serious. Tomorrow night, at the Vineyard. A wine release party will unveil the new vintage. The day after your wife was arrested? Claire looked concerned. Exactly. I want everyone there. All our friends, business associates, even Brooke's real estate colleagues. Everyone who thinks they know us. Dad understood first. You're going to tell them. Everything. The truth about the money, about what Brooke did, about who we really are. No more hiding. That's dangerous, mijo. Once people know about the inheritance, what? They'll use me? Betray me? Steal from me? I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Too late. My wife already covered all that. Grace took my hand. I think it's perfect. Like lancing a wound, you have to get all the poison out. Tomorrow night, I repeated. 8 o'clock. Everyone's invited to watch the Martinez family stop pretending. That evening, we returned to the house, our house, though it felt like a stranger's now. Brooke was gone, taken for booking. Her absence filled the space like smoke. I found a note on the kitchen counter, her handwriting shaky. I'm sorry. You'll never believe me, but I loved you once, before I forgot how. I crumpled it, then smoothed it out, then crumpled it again. Finally, I left it on the counter like evidence of a crime. The girls made dinner spaghetti with jarred sauce, garlic bread from a package. We ate in silence until Olivia spoke. Do you think she ever loved us? Really loved us? Yes, I said without hesitation. Whatever else she became, she loved you both. Love just wasn't enough to stop her from wanting more. More than us? Different than us. Connor's world, the one with gallery openings and expense accounts and nobody asking where the money came from. We could have given her that world, Grace said quietly. If she'd known about your money, no. If she'd known, she would have pretended better. We'd have lived the lie longer, but it still would have ended. Just with more expensive lawyers. After dinner, I stood in the vineyard with Tony, looking over the vines in the dying light. Heard about Brooke, he said simply. News travels. Small town, big shock, you okay? I'm planning a party for tomorrow night. Tony raised an eyebrow. That's either very healthy or very crazy. Both, probably. You going to tell people about the ownership? Among other things. Tony was quiet for a moment, then said, Good. Truth's like sunlight kills most of what grows in the dark. That night I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, seeing it differently now. The empty spaces where stolen heirlooms had sat, the couch where Brooke had planned her schemes, the bed we'd shared while she texted her lover. At 3 in the morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. Blake? It's Connor. My blood turned to ice, then fire. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. Listen, I know you're angry. Angry? I laughed. I'm way past angry, cabron. I want to make a deal. You have nothing I want. I have information about Brooke, things she did you don't know about. Save it for the police. I'm leaving the country. Tonight. But first, I thought you should know she was planning to take the girls. My heart stopped. What? After the open house. She had tickets for all three of them to Costa Rica. She was going to grab them from school. Tell them you were meeting them there. You're lying. Check her laptop. The emails are all there. She figured you'd never find them in a foreign country. She could claim custody, say you abandoned them. Why are you telling me this? Because I may be a bastard, but I'm not a monster. And because I want you to know it wasn't me. The whole thing, the stealing, the blackmail, that was all her. I just wanted to sell some art, maybe make some money. I didn't know how far she'd go. You helped her. You're just as guilty. Maybe. But I never would have taken another man's children. He paused. I'm sorry, for what it's worth, which probably isn't much. The line went dead. I found Brooke's laptop in her office, password protected, but she'd used our anniversary date. Even her security was a lie. There they were. 3 tickets to San Jose, Costa Rica, dated for next week. Seats 12A, 12B, and 12C. She was going to steal my daughters. The rage that filled me was pure and clean. Like grain alcohol, it could fuel me or burn me alive. I chose fuel. Chapter 10. Sunday morning arrived wrapped in marine fog, the kind that made the whole world feel like it was holding its breath. I stood in my kitchen, making breakfast for girls who didn't want to eat, trying to pretend this was just another day. But Grace and Olivia sat at the table like refugees from their own lives, picking at toast, avoiding eye contact. She was going to take us, Olivia finally asked. I'd told them about the tickets over breakfast, deciding they deserved the truth. No more secrets, no more protection from reality. That's what the evidence suggests. To Costa Rica? Grace's voice was hollow. Without telling us? Without asking us? The tickets were in fake names. The emails talk about starting fresh and giving you girls a better life. Better? Olivia laughed bitterly. With him? With Connor? I don't think Connor knew about that part. He called it off, left the country alone last night. So she's alone now, Grace said. It wasn't a question. My phone buzzed. Julian, at the gallery. You need to see this. Connor's art gallery sat on State Street like a beautiful lie, all glass and light and modern pretension, but now it was surrounded by yellow tape, cops, cataloging evidence. What's happening? I asked Julian. Connor didn't just run from your wife's mess. Turns out half his inventory is forged. He's been selling fake Picassos to tech millionaires for 2 years. Through the window, I could see investigators examining paintings, comparing them to photographs on tablets. All that beauty, all fake. Brooke know? Had to. Some of the sales went through her client connections. She got 15%. Another crime to add to the list. My wife, the gift that kept on giving. Claire Davis appeared, looking tired but satisfied. Blake, we need to talk about tonight. The party's still on. I mean security. Once you reveal you're worth billions, you become a target. I've been a target, just didn't know it. This is different. Kidnapping, extortion, every con artist in California will know your name. They already do. At least now they'll know I'm not an easy mark. She studied me. You've changed. I've stopped pretending. There's a difference. That afternoon, I stood in the winery's event space, watching the staff set up for the party. Round tables with white linens, fairy lights strung between posts, a stage where I'd stand and dynamite my carefully constructed life. Boss? Tony appeared with a clipboard. Catering wants to know how many. Everyone we invited, plus whoever else shows up. This is Santa Barbara gossip travels faster than wildfire. You sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Dad arrived with Mom, her arm through his, united in crisis the way they'd always been. She kissed my cheek, whispered, Mijo, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, for the girls, for all of us. No more secrets. At 5 o'clock, Brooke called from jail. I almost didn't answer, then decided I needed to hear her voice one more time before tonight. Blake, please. I found the tickets. Silence. Costa Rica, Brooke? You were going to kidnap our daughters? I wasn't. It wasn't kidnapping. I'm their mother. You were taking them out of the country under false names without my knowledge. That's kidnapping. I was trying to protect them. From what? From this. From the truth coming out. From having a father who'd rather live in dirt than give them better. Better. You keep using that word. Connor could have given us. Connor left you. Ran to Mexico last night, alone. Didn't even say goodbye, did he? I heard her sharp intake of breath, then crying. He abandoned you, Brooke. Just like you were going to abandon me, except I would have fought for our girls. He didn't fight for you at all. I loved him. No. You loved what he represented, the lifestyle, the sophistication, the escape from reality. But reality always wins. I loved you once, too. I know. That's what makes this worse. Blake, the party tonight, I heard about it. From my lawyer. Good. You're going to tell everyone about the money? Everything. They'll hate you for lying. Maybe. But it's my lie to confess, not yours to exploit. What about the girls? What will people say? The truth. That their mother is a criminal and their father is a billionaire who chose to live simply. They'll survive. Martinez women always do. She was quiet for a long moment. Will you let them visit me? In prison? That's their choice. I won't stop them, but I won't force them either. I'm sorry, Blake, for all of it. I know. It doesn't change anything. The lawyer says 15 years, maybe 20. You made your choices. I did. And now I have to live with them. Or without them. She paused. Take care of our girls. I always have. I hung up. It was the last time we'd speak for 2 years. 6 o'clock. The sun was setting over the vineyard, painting everything gold. Grace and Olivia stood with me on the terrace, dressed in their best clothes, not for celebration, but for closure. You ready for this? I asked them. Are you? Grace countered. No. But that's never stopped me before. What if people are cruel? About Mom? Olivia worried. Then we'll know who our real friends are. Patricia from Murphy's arrived first because of course she did. The town's nerve center couldn't miss this. Blake Martinez, she said, hugging me tight. You poor man. I'm not poor, Patricia. That's part of what I need to tell everyone. She pulled back, studied my face. I knew there was something. Nobody's that content being broke. By 7:30, the space was full. Brooke's colleagues clustered together, whispering. Connor's art world friends looked nervous, probably wondering if they'd bought forgeries. My vineyard workers mingled with city officials, Dad's construction crews with Mom's book club, and in the middle of it all, Sadie Thompson, the collector who'd almost bought our family history. Mr. Martinez, she approached carefully. I want to apologize again. You were deceived too. Still, those baseballs your grandfather caught them? Everyone. That's real provenance. That's actual history. She looked around. Unlike Connor's gallery. You bought from him? 3 paintings, all fake according to the FBI. She laughed bitterly. I should have known. Real art has flaws. Connor's pieces were too perfect. Like his relationship with my wife. At 8 o'clock, I took the stage. The crowd quieted. Hundreds of faces turned toward me, some sympathetic, some curious, some already calculating. Thank you all for coming, I began. I know you're expecting a wine release party. You're getting that, but also something more, the truth. I saw Dad nod encouragingly, Mom holding his hand, the girls standing tall beside them. Most of you know me as Blake Martinez, vineyard worker, husband to Brooke, father to Grace and Olivia. What you don't know is that I've been lying to you for years. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 5 years ago, my grandfather, Alejandro Martinez, died and left me something this vineyard. All of it. Santa Barbara Vineyards, the entire operation, worth approximately $2.7 billion. Gasps. Phones coming out. The modern world's instinct to record revelation. I chose to keep working the vines, to live simply, to test whether I could be loved for who I was rather than what I owned. It was an experiment in truth, which became a lie that lasted 5 years. Why tell us now? Someone called out. Because my wife... I had to stop, swallow, continue. Because Brooke discovered other people's secrets and used them for profit. She blackmailed my father, stole from my family, betrayed every trust we gave her. And she did it all while believing I was poor. I pulled out the remote, clicked to the first slide the photo of our family with the jukebox. This jukebox has been in my family for 70 years. Yesterday, Brooke tried to sell it to fund a new life with Connor Johnson. Click. the baseballs. These were caught by my grandfather one by one, Sunday after Sunday. She listed them online as vintage sports memorabilia from an estate sale. Click, the audio waveform. This is a recording of my wife extorting my father for $500,000. I played it. Brooke's voice filled the space, cold and calculating. William stood straighter, facing the judgment of his community with dignity. When it finished, the silence was deafening. I'm telling you this because I'm done with secrets, done with lies, done pretending that appearance matters more than truth. What happens to Brooke? It was one of her colleagues, looking pale. She's been arrested. She'll face trial. She'll likely serve 15 to 20 years. And Connor Johnson? Fled the country, but his crimes will follow him. I looked out at the crowd, these people who'd been part of our performance without knowing it. I apologize for my deception. I wanted to find genuine love, genuine friendship. Instead, I found that everyone lies, some just hide it better. That's not true, a voice called out. It was Tony stepping forward. You're wrong, boss. Yeah, I said, boss. I've known for 3 years you owned this place. The way you looked at the vines, the way you knew things only an owner would know. I kept quiet because it was your secret to tell. Others started speaking up. The banker who'd noticed my hidden accounts but said nothing. The lawyer who'd recognized my grandfather's signature on documents. Even Patricia, who'd suspected all along that something didn't add up. We all have secrets, she said. The difference is yours didn't hurt anyone. My wife would disagree. Your wife hurt herself, Mom said loudly. She had everything: a loving husband, beautiful daughters, a good life, and she threw it away for money she could have had honestly if she'd just asked. The crowd began to shift, the energy changing from shock to something else: support, maybe even understanding. So what now? Someone asked. Now we drink wine, I said. The 2015 vintage, born from stress and struggle, aged in darkness, ready finally for light. The servers began pouring, the crowd began mingling, and slowly the party became what it was supposed to be: a release. Chapter 11. The wine flowed like truth, red and raw and necessary. I stood at the edge of the party, watching our community recalibrate their understanding of who I was, who we were. Some guests left early, unable to process the revelation. Others pressed closer, suddenly interested in the humble grape picker who was actually a billionaire. Mr. Martinez, a young reporter from the Santa Barbara Independent, appeared, recorder in hand. Can you comment on? No comment, Julian intercepted smoothly. This is a private event. But I stopped him. It's okay. No more hiding. The reporter, barely older than Grace, fumbled with her questions. Why hide your wealth for so long? My grandfather built this empire from nothing. He came here from Jalisco with $20 and a dream. When he died, he left me everything with one instruction: find someone who loves you for your hands, not your holdings. And your wife? Failed the test. That seems cruel. What's cruel is stealing from your family, blackmailing your father-in-law, and planning to kidnap your children to Costa Rica. She blinked. Kidnap? We found the tickets, false names one way, scheduled for next week. The story would be front page tomorrow. Good. Let the truth spread like wildfire through drought grass. Claire Davis approached with 2 officers. Blake, we need to show you something. They led me to a quiet corner where they'd set up a laptop. We've been going through Brooke's computer. There's more. The screen showed email after email, a correspondence dating back 2 years. Not with Connor, with someone named Richard Klein. Who's Richard Klein? A developer from Los Angeles. Married, 3 kids. Your wife was having another affair before Connor. My stomach turned. How many? At least 3 that we can document. She was using the real estate showings as cover. Empty houses. Flexible schedule. So Connor wasn't special. Connor had something the others didn't: criminal connections. He could move the stolen goods. I thought about Brooke crying in jail, claiming she loved Connor. Another lie, or had she convinced herself it was true? There's more, Claire said gently. She was scouting your vineyard. What? Emails to developers about the land value, preliminary discussions about what it would take to force a sale if she inherited after a divorce. Or if something happened to me. Claire's silence was confirmation enough. You think she would have? We don't know. But she was researching your life insurance policies. I walked away from the laptop, needing air. On the terrace, I found Dad sitting alone, nursing a glass of the 2015 Pinot. How you holding up, mijo? She was planning to kill me, Dad. He didn't look surprised. Power corrupts. Money just reveals what's already corrupt. How's Mom? Relieved. The secret's out, she's forgiven me, we move forward. That's what family does. Even when family betrays you? Especially then, otherwise the betrayal wins. Grace found us there, her face flushed from dancing with her friends. Dad, people are asking if you're going to make a speech. I already did. A real one, about the future, not the past. She was right. I'd torn everything down. Now I needed to build something new. I returned to the stage, tapping the microphone. The crowd quieted. I want to thank you all for staying, for listening, for not immediately assuming I'm the villain here. You're not the villain, someone shouted. Brooke is. No, I said firmly. Brooke is a person who lost her way. She made terrible choices, criminal choices, but she's also the mother of my children, and was once the woman I loved. She'll pay for her crimes, but I won't let hatred poison what we build next. I looked at Grace and Olivia, standing together near the stage. Starting tomorrow, Santa Barbara Vineyards will establish a scholarship program for children of vineyard workers, full college tuition for any child whose parent works these fields. Gasps from my workers, many of them first-generation immigrants like my grandfather had been. We're also converting the east wing of the estate into a wine education center, free to the public, because knowledge shouldn't be hoarded any more than wealth should be hidden. What about your wife's victims? Sadie Thompson called out. Those of us who bought forgeries from Connor? Anyone who can prove they were defrauded through Brooke or Connor's schemes will be compensated from my personal funds. I can't undo their crimes, but I can try to make things right. The crowd erupted in applause, but I wasn't done. Finally, in my grandfather's memory, we're establishing the Alejandro Martinez Foundation for Truth and Justice. It will provide legal aid to victims of extortion and fraud who can't afford to fight back. Why? Someone asked. Because my wife got away with her crimes for so long because her victims were ashamed or afraid. My father suffered in silence rather than risk exposure. That ends now. I raised my glass of the 2015 vintage. This wine was born from grapes that suffered. Drought, fungus, neglect, they survived it all. And in their struggle, they developed complexity, depth, character. They became better because of their trials, not despite them. Everyone raised their glasses. To truth, I said. May it age better than lies. To truth, the crowd echoed. As I left the stage, William approached with tears in his eyes. Your grandfather would be so proud, mijo. Even though I lied? Because you stopped. That's the difference between a good man who makes mistakes and a bad person who chooses evil. The party continued past midnight, but I found myself in the vineyard with Grace and Olivia, walking between the rows under stars. Are we going to be okay? Olivia asked. Different, I said. But okay. Will people treat us differently, now that they know about the money? Some will. That's how we'll know who our real friends are. I don't want to visit her, Grace said suddenly. Mom, in prison. Not yet. That's okay. Maybe someday, when I'm not so angry. That's okay, too. We stood there, three figures in the darkness, surrounded by sleeping vines that would wake with spring, grow through summer, and give us harvest in the fall. The cycle would continue, with or without Brooke. Dad, Olivia said, I'm glad you told the truth, even though it hurts. Especially because it hurts. Real things are supposed to hurt sometimes. 16 and 14, my daughters had learned what took me 40 years to understand, that truth is like wine. It might be bitter at first, but it gets better with time. Tomorrow, Brooke would be arraigned. Connor would be hiding somewhere in Mexico. The news would spread our story across California. But tonight, we stood in our vineyard, our real vineyard that we no longer had to pretend wasn't ours, and breathed in the smell of earth and growth and possibility. Let's go home, I said, and for the first time in years, I meant it. Chapter 12. 6 months later. The courthouse in Santa Barbara looked different in October light, less intimidating, more like what it was, just a building where humans judged other humans. I sat in the gallery with Grace and Olivia, watching Brooke in her orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, no makeup to hide behind. She'd lost weight, her cheekbones sharp as accusations. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Harrison asked. "We have, Your Honor." "On the count of grand theft? How do you find?" "Guilty." "On the count of extortion?" "Guilty." "On the count of wire fraud?" "Guilty." Each verdict hit like a gavel, final and irreversible. Brooke didn't flinch, just stared straight ahead at some point beyond the courtroom. "Miss Martinez," the judge addressed her, "you have been found guilty on all counts. Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Brooke stood, turned to look at us. Grace grabbed my hand. Olivia looked away. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "I became someone I don't recognize. I lost myself in wanting more, and in losing myself, I lost everything that mattered." She looked directly at our daughters. "Grace, Olivia, you deserved better. A mother who valued you more than money, who chose family over fraud. I failed you. I'm sorry." Then to me, "Blake, you gave me everything except the truth about who you were. But that doesn't excuse what I did. I betrayed not just your trust, but your father's, your family's, everyone who ever believed in me." She sat down. Judge Harrison nodded. "Miss Martinez, this court sentences you to 15 years in state prison with possibility of parole in 7. Court is adjourned." They led her away. She didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I'd learned to handle them over the months, direct, honest, brief. "Mr. Martinez, how do you feel about the sentence?" "Justice was served." "Will your daughters visit their mother?" "That's their decision." "What about Connor Johnson?" Claire Davis stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson was arrested in Cabo San Lucas 3 weeks ago. He's been extradited and will face trial next month." We pushed through to the car, where Julian waited to drive us home. "You okay?" he asked the girls. "We're okay," Grace said. "It's over." But it wasn't over, it was just beginning. 1 year later, the Wine Education Center opened on a perfect September day, the kind that made Santa Barbara feel like paradise instead of purgatory. I stood at the ribbon cutting, watching the first class of students file in children of vineyard workers, eager to learn the science behind what their parents did with their hands. "Mr. Martinez?" A young woman approached. "I'm Rosa Delgado. My father works your South Vineyard." "Jose's daughter?" "Yes. I wanted to thank you for the scholarship. I'll be the first in my family to attend college." "What will you study?" "Agricultural science. I want to come back and work here, but not just in the fields. I want to understand the why, not just the how." "Your grandfather would have liked that," Dad said, joining us. He'd aged in the past year, the stress of the trial and revelations taking their toll, but he stood straighter now, unburdened by secrets. The center was beautiful, all glass and light, filled with equipment donated by other vineyards, books purchased with money that might have gone to Brooke's designer clothes or Connor's fake art. Tony ran the educational programs, his decades of knowledge finally given the respect it deserved. "Boss," he said, though I'd asked him to stop calling me that. "The first fermentation demonstration is starting." We watched children learn how grapes became wine, how pressure and time and careful attention transformed one thing into another. Like families, I thought. Like truth. That evening, we had dinner at my parents' house, a new tradition since the trial. Mom cooked, Dad told stories, the girls did homework at the same table where I'd done mine decades ago. "Any word from her?" Mom asked carefully. "She writes the girls every week. They don't read the letters yet, but I save them." "Maybe someday," Mom said. "Maybe." After dinner, I found Olivia in the garden, sketching. She'd started art classes, channeling her pain into something beautiful. "What are you drawing?" "The jukebox. I want to remember it right, not how it looked at that fake open house." "How do you want to remember it?" "In Grandpa's house, playing old Mexican songs, you and Mom dancing. We were happy then. Were we? Or were we just pretending better? 15 years old and already too wise. Maybe both. Dad, do you think people can change? Really change?" I think people can choose to be better. Every day they can choose. Is Mom choosing? I don't know, Mia. That's her journey now. 2 years after the arrest, June 2017. Grace's graduation day dawned clear and bright. She stood at the podium, valedictorian of her class, poised and confident in ways that made my chest tight with pride. "Fellow graduates, families, friends," she began. "We're told that high school prepares us for real life, but real life doesn't wait for graduation. It happens whether we're ready or not." She found my eyes in the crowd. 2 years ago, my family's life exploded. Secrets were revealed, trust was shattered, and we had to rebuild from rubble. But here's what I learned. Sometimes destruction is necessary for construction. She talked about resilience, about choosing truth over comfort, about the difference between wealth and worth. My grandfather came to this country with nothing but hope. My father inherited billions but chose to live simply. My mother chose differently. Each generation makes its choices, and those choices echo forward. She paused, composed herself. In winemaking, there's a process called disgorgement, removing the sediment so the wine can be clear. My family has been through disgorgement. We've removed what was clouding us. Now we're clear. The crowd erupted in applause. William wiped his eyes. Mom held my hand. Olivia whistled through her fingers. "That's our girl," I whispered. After the ceremony, we returned to the vineyard for Grace's party. Friends, family, and half the town gathered among the vines. Patricia from Murphy's cornered me. "Blake Martinez, that daughter of yours is something special." She is. Takes after her father. She's better. She learned from my mistakes. As the sun set, I found myself alone with Grace by the old oak tree where I'd proposed to Brooke 18 years ago. "I've been accepted to Stanford," she said. "I know, full scholarship, which you don't need anymore. But I earned it, before anyone knew about the money." "You did." "Dad, I want to study law, become a prosecutor like Claire." "Because of Mom? Because of us. Because families need advocates when truth and lies get tangled. Your mother would be proud." Would she? A year ago, Grace had finally read some of Brooke's letters. They were full of regret, accountability, and something that might have been growth. I think the person she's becoming would be proud. The person she was would have tried to take credit. I might visit her before I leave for college. If you're ready, I'll never be ready, but maybe that's the point. That night, after everyone left, I walked the vineyard alone. The vines were heavy with fruit, ready for harvest. Another cycle completing, another beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then saw the preview. "It's Connor." I opened it fully. "Sentenced to 8 years. Wanted you to know I testified against Brooke to get a deal. I'm sorry for all of it. She deserved better than me. You all did." I deleted it without responding. Some dialogues were finished. The stars came out, brilliant in the country darkness. Somewhere Brooke was looking at the same stars through prison windows. Somewhere Connor was too. Somewhere my grandfather was watching, proud or disappointed or maybe both. But here, in this vineyard that had seen so much truth and so many lies, my daughters slept peacefully in their beds. My parents, reconciled and stronger, held each other in the house where I grew up. The vines grew steadily toward harvest. I thought about Brooke's last words at sentencing. "I became someone I don't recognize." Maybe that was true for all of us. I wasn't the naive man who'd hidden his fortune. Grace wasn't the innocent girl who'd trusted blindly. Olivia wasn't the child who'd believed in perfect families. We'd all become unrecognizable. But unlike Brooke, we'd become better versions of ourselves, scarred but stronger, wounded but wiser. The harvest moon rose over the mountains, bathing everything in silver. Tomorrow we'd pick grapes. In the fall, Grace would leave for Stanford. Olivia would start her junior year. I'd continue running the vineyard, no longer hiding, no longer pretending. And maybe someday, years from now, Brooke would emerge from prison, changed or unchanged, and we'd have to decide what forgiveness looked like, what family meant after betrayal. But tonight, standing in my grandfather's vineyard, I raised a glass of the 2015 vintage to the moon. "Salud, abuelo," I said to the night. "We survived. We revealed. We rebuilt. The wind through the vines sounded like approval, like whispers in Spanish and English, like all the languages of truth. I walked back to the house, to my daughters, to the life we'd salvaged from lies. Behind me, the vines continued their patient growth, turning sunlight into sugar, time into wine, truth into something we could swallow. The harvest was over. The new growth had begun. And somewhere in between destruction and construction, we'd found ourselves not who we'd pretended to be, but who we really were. That had to be enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. What struck me most wasn't Blake's billions or even Brooke's crimes. It was how both partners built their entire marriage on deception, each hiding their true selves until the foundation inevitably crumbled. While Brooke deserved her punishment, I can't help but wonder if Blake's test of love wasn't its own form of manipulation, raising the question, in a relationship built on mutual lies, who's really the victim?